Today, Thursday, June 1st, it is about 6 p.m., and we're going to go ahead and get started. And we're going to start, please, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, up first, we will do our typical audio disclosure. As we know, the town is broadcasting this evening's meeting, and just a quick check with the audience to see if anyone else is recording this evening's meeting. And we have at least one recording, so for anyone that would like to speak, you are welcome to. Just please know that you'll be recorded, and if you would not like to be recorded, you are welcome to either not speak or share your comments in writing. Let's see, that is the end of our audio disclosure. So we are at the public comment portion of our meeting. A quick couple of notes about public comment. Let's see, to assure that all voices are heard and comply with Massachusetts general law, as well as a recent Superior Court decision, the guidelines for our public comment meeting are as follows. Each attendee is welcome to speak for up to 3 minutes at a time. Each attendee is welcome to speak up to 2 times. All comments should be addressed through the chair, not to others in the hall. And all comments must be related to a topic which is within the school committee's jurisdiction. That jurisdiction generally includes the hiring, evaluation, and supervision of the superintendent, establishment of district budget, and establishment of district goals and policies. The First Amendment does allow broad constitutional protections for speech during this time. However, it has been ruled that free speech does not allow for threats, frightening words, or obscene content, and all speakers are encouraged to present their remarks in a respectful manner. Written comments, especially those that are beyond or longer than 3 minutes, are absolutely welcomed. They can be submitted tonight to the board, or they can be submitted at any other time before or after a meeting. The public comment period is not a discussion. Members of the board and representatives of the schools are asked to listen and not respond to information during our public comment. And it is possible that questions or comments that are asked tonight could be answered in tonight's meeting or after tonight's meeting. And apologies to everyone that has heard that multiple times. And so that opens up our public comment section, and we welcome anyone from the hall to address the board. Yes, please. And sorry, I should have said, if you don't mind just sharing your name with...
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm Martha McEwen. I'm the secretary at Memorial Elementary School, and I don't know how close I have to get to this.
Thank you.
I had sent you all a copy of what I'm going to read tonight, and you should have gotten maybe a few other emails concerning Principal Shante Jilson at Memorial. And so I just read?
Please.
All right. Can you hear me? Thank you for letting me speak. Dear school committee members, I am writing on behalf of the unwarranted dismissal of Memorial Principal Shante Jilson. With the rescinded or reorganization plan for the district, much of the veteran staff and myself would like to see the school committee step in and keep Mrs. Jilson. I will share only facts that I have witnessed as Memorial School Secretary, no hearsay or gossip. September 2022, a new student entered Memorial. It was immediately recognized that the student was in need of significantly more support for behaviors indicated on the initial IEP. Principal Jilson requested immediate support and consent for more testing and behavioral evaluation. The district BCBA observed the student 2 days after the request. This was the child's birthday, so the student was having a good day due to all the special birthday attention. Any further support immediately stalled out. September continued, behaviors escalated to the point where mobile crisis needed to be called. I watched as behaviors witnessed daily by all Memorial staff, consisting of eloping, refusal, tantrums, physical and verbal aggression towards students and staff, and destruction were daily occurrences. All the while, Principal Jilson was requesting support from the Director of Pupil Services and the Superintendent. No support came. October through mid-December 2022, I witnessed the primary caregivers, who were Principal Jilson, and our 3 school adjustment counselors. They became more overwhelmed with the situation. Our other students' needs were not being met because They were one-on-one, two-on-one, and three-on-one with this particular student, yet no support came. The severity of the situation was known on every level of administration. At one point during this time frame, the superintendent had told Principal Jilson, and I quote, he was worried about her, yet no support came. Jump ahead to 2023. Principal Jilson met with the superintendent and was told she was not a fit for the future and that her last day would be June 30th, 2023. No further explanation was offered. Not only was Principal Jilson shocked, so was the staff at Memorial. Mrs. Jilson has carried on her duties, head held high, and working with the same devoted, dedicated, and invested spirit. Was this move, along with other dismissals of staff, to align for the superintendent's reorganization plan for the district? Or was this due to the pure chaos at Memorial with this student? If it is the latter, Principal Jilson asked for support numerous times, yet no support came. The Winchendon School District is letting one passionate and knowledgeable educator go. 34 years in education, 11 years as a principal, never one negative review. 23 years as a teacher, 9 years in special education, 9 years in kindergarten, 5 years in first grade. I am asking the school committee to please take a closer look at this dismissal by the superintendent. Please listen to the staff at Memorial who work directly with her. Any change to building leadership at Memorial School will lead to further instability and could diminish student outcomes, decrease staff morale, and take years to return to making effective progress. Principal Jilson has made Memorial School a safe place for educators and staff to take risks, be innovative, and prioritize student work and inventions, and to collaborate with colleagues in a meaningful way. If this decision is upheld, Winchendon will be losing a powerful voice for the children at Memorial.
Thank you very much for your comments. Others who would like to address the board? Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, I'm Jane LaPointe. I live in Winchendon. This is the first school board meeting I've attended, so it's, I came with questions, but I realized I'll keep them as comments, and I'll figure out a way to send them to you. And my questions are really about the early learning reorganization. I can appreciate there are a number of people, parents and staff, because I've been following this in social media and in the newspaper, who are really pleased to see this put on hold. And I also imagine there are a number of people, parents and caregivers, and perhaps even some staff who were disappointed and concerned about the ongoing impact on our preschool students who are missing out on the opportunity to be better prepared to enter and succeed in our school system. When the Early Learning Center was put out on the table, a door was opened to an important opportunity that will benefit the lives of all of the children in our town as they move through our school system. There's certainly a lot of data that proves that. So my questions, or at this point my comments. Is there agreement that an early learning center for all in our town is a need? A program whose benefits would ripple through the school system as students enter our schools and progress through the grades? Is there a commitment to keep this on the table and active, to follow through with a plan and an active reorganization and an anticipated reorganization? Is there a process and a time frame in mind for doing this? If not, when will there be and when will it be announced? And if there is, how can we find out and stay informed or even be involved? Some idea for a citizens advisory group or something like that. If there's a sense that there are a lot of other priorities, and I get that there's a lot going on in our school district, I believe that this needs to be one of those both and, or all of the above, not an either or kind of a program and an initiative. And if this doesn't happen, then I'm concerned about what will be the impact on these children and on our schools and programs as they progress through them, which is really something I could say for academics or art and music or sports or any access to enrichment activities. And I'll pause there, because at some point I'm going to do some research. I'm really curious about what is the role, responsibility of the school board to the children and people of Winchina. That's my comments.
Thank you. Thank you. Others? Yes.
Hello everyone, my name is Ariane and I'm a 6th grader at the middle school. You can just call me Keddy. I know that my mom has been a kind of a pain for you to deal with recently, but I'd really like if you would listen to what I have to say. I just heard that Miss Whitaker will not be back next year to the middle school to teach health and gym, and that she will not be our athletic director anymore. This is the worst news. I am an athlete. I play sports each season, but I really concentrate on football. I have been playing since I was 5 years old. I have played in various leagues with various coaches, and this past December, I had this privilege of representing Massachusetts by playing in the U.S. Army Bowl tournament in Texas. I played with athletes from almost every school in our district, and I wasn't the only athlete from Murdoch to play on this team. There are 3 others. We were the only school in our district to have multiple athletes be selected, though. I plan on going to college at Kent State in Ohio and playing football there once I graduate from Murdoch. Miss Whitaker will make this happen with me. She isn't just a gym teacher and an organizer of the sport. Even though if that is really what you hired her to do, she is the strength behind the programs being built at Murdoch. I've played for many coaches throughout my football career, and I can tell you the best coaches are the ones who work with leaders to build programs, not just run them. That is what Miss Whitaker has been doing. She sees what future can be for Murdoch and plays for players like me. I ran track this year and had 2 of the best coaches I've ever had. They are able to be best coaches because their boss, Miss Whitaker, has given them the power to build something great. And football proved that this fall when they won their Thanksgiving Day game for the first time since 2007. That is what building a program looks like. I'm sure that everyone that works at our school is very smart, but being a great AD isn't just being smart. It's about knowing your athletes and their strengths, weaknesses, and dreams. Miss Whitaker takes the time to get to know all of her athletes. Mr. King, I don't know if you like all athletics, but I know you like Alabama football. This is a little small town of Winchendon, has the ability to send students to sports programs just like Alabama. But we will never get there if we have a new AD who has to start building those programs all over again, and likely to have to find new coaches. I have been offered the opportunity to go play football at St. Bernard's. It's a great school where I'll get great education and have opportunities to play football in a higher division. It sounds really great, but their program is already built, so I won't have the chance to play for a program that is becoming one of the best. I will have that chance if I play for Murdoch. I can be part of the athletic department that is being built to greatness. Mr. King, I'm asking you as a future athlete who will not stop until I'm stepping onto a D1 field to please ask Miss Whitaker to stay. I know that you care about students going to college and staying in college. Many of us can do that, and athletics will help us get there. We need her and what she knows about athletics. We don't need a teacher that has anything less than her training in sports management. She is the right fit for this school. She bleeds blue. Me and my teammates and friends have already lost too much this year, and now we won't have our AD. Please ask her to stay. You owe us that.
Thank you, sir. Others, please. In the back, yes.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that awesome speech. Good job, bud. So hello, my name is Laura Parks. I have been a Winchendon resident for 16 years. I have one child in second grade at Memorial. I'm also part of the Toytown Memorial PTO. We've had an event on April 29th at Memorial. We had a vendor fair with raffles, games for free, face painting for free. We had an event on May 19th at Lickety Splits, food and ice cream for sale, with part of their profit going to the schools. We had bubbles and we had dancing for free. We had nothing but outpouring support from the community for this event. Cars were parking all the way down to Sibley Road. We've had nothing but positive from in-person and online for feedbacks for these events. But what was noticed by many, no superintendent, no school committee members, except for Mr. LaPointe, did show up to Lickety Splits.
The ice cream was wonderful.
It is. So, we're all here for the kids. I work a 50-plus hour job. I do a Little League, Cal Ripken baseball coach, and I'm on the PTO. I understand that we're asking for people to take time out of their day to come support these kids, but like I said, it is noticeable. We're not seeing the support from the school committee or from the schools. We've had a few teachers show up and help us out, and I appreciate that and thank them very much for helping us, but we need the help. We can't throw these events with just three, 4 of us. So when we're asking for help, we send these out on Facebook, on Parent Squares, flyers are sent home, the Winchendon Courier. We're reaching out to you guys asking for this help for these events. So I believe, Ryan, you were at the Monster Mash. Did I see you there? Toytown? Maybe not?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes, I have a good memory. I swear I do. And yes, I was.
Yes. So I was in the cafeteria, which went very smoothly. We had the high schoolers come down and help us in the gym, and it was chaos. So we had 4 of the PTO members and help from a few of the teachers and from the high school. That is not enough to do these events. We need more. So we're reaching out, asking for help. What I would like to know is what's the best way to reach the school committee and teachers to get this help? Like I said, we posted on Parent Square, we posted on Facebook, we send flyers to the school, posting in the Winchendon Courier. What's the best way? Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Yes.
My name is Kayla. I have been a resident in this town for 19 years. I have had 3 children attend Winchendon Public Schools at some point in their life, and I still have 1 at Toytown. At the last school board meeting on May 18th, Ms. Cast had asked for a motion to pause the reconstruction of the schools until questions and concerns were answered. It was voted on. 2 were in favor, 2 were opposed. Mr. Chairman, you voted no because, I quote, "We have a sound structure in place. We have a superintendent, we have a high school principal, we have a middle school we hope to have a middle school principal soon. We have a memorial principal, and we have an early literacy school director." Let's talk about that for a moment. Do we have a superintendent? Because it is public knowledge that Mr. King recently applied for a superintendent position in Billerica schools. I watched that interview with my own eyes. I was disgusted to sit there and watch Mr. King apply for another job while he flipped our school systems upside down, fired our teachers, and yet so eager to leave. So sure, we have a superintendent at the moment, but for how long? We have a high school principal. You were correct there. The middle school principal, we had 1. She's on a, quote, leave of absence since March. Was she fired? Is she ill? We have no idea because nobody will talk about it. That could be because of lawsuits that have been filed. So the middle school principal, the position hasn't been posted to be filled, so we'll just say there's no middle school principal. Toytown principal is still there. And as somebody mentioned earlier, the Memorial School principal has not had a renewal of contract, so no principal there is either. Our special ed director is, from what I've heard, working under not the proper license. There are 2 lawsuits out against our special ed department and 30-plus cases filed with DESE. So it goes without saying that our special ed department is a hot mess. We have no athletics director, and at least 5 teachers have been fired in the last 5 months. We have a 10th grade chemistry class that has had a slew of substitute teachers because there is no teacher, and they have watched movies all year. How's that for an education? And then let's not forget that our school district is ranked what? In the bottom 10% for the state? That makes us lower than Athol Public Schools right now. How disgusting. So my question, Mr. Chair, is what part of our school system is sound? Because from my point of view, we have a high school principal, and that's the only thing we got going at the moment. Mr. Vine, you said in your closing statement at the last school board meeting that in order to solve problems, we have to face them and work together. I agree. It takes everybody. It takes teachers, the parents, the school board. Yet parents have been coming to these meetings for months. We've been expressing our concerns and our problems to the school board, and nothing has been done. You went on to state that nobody on the school committee is ignoring our concerns. Yet here we are, months later, still expressing the same concerns and the same problems. We brought concerns to the schools individually first, and then our superintendent, and nothing was done or even addressed, so we came to you. For months, we have been sitting here voicing our concerns, and still nothing, not a statement, absolutely nothing.
Ms. Main, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I assume that the crowd would like to let her have a little bit more time? All right, great, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vine, you were correct when you said that we may not see eye to eye and we will not always agree. But what we don't agree on, we don't have to agree on everything to see what is happening right in front of us. Lawsuits, teachers being fired, a superintendent looking for a new job, 30-plus DESE cases filed, complaints filed with the Massachusetts School Board Committee in some of the lowest ranking schools in the system. We have big problems, real big problems, and you're not addressing them. You're not even acknowledging them. As a school board members, you should all be ashamed that these parents sit here week after week begging you to help their children, and yet nothing. Our school system is failing our kids. This falls on the superintendent, it falls on the teachers, the principals, the parents, and all of you. We have some amazing teachers in our school system, but they are not being supported, and they do not have the proper tools to educate our children. We need to do better. But it starts with acknowledging the problems and then fixing them, not just flipping them upside down and trying to change them. It starts with acknowledging that our school systems are failing, and they have been failing for a long, long time. We're failing our kids, your grandkids. We need to come together and we need to find solutions and fix them, not just put a Band-Aid on them. And that starts with you guys addressing them.
Thank you. Yes, in the back?
My name is Brittany, and I'm a mother of 5 children in the Winchendon Public School System. It has been brought to my attention that it's not in my best interest for my family or myself personally or professionally to speak about any of the issues that I have in the school. So with my time up here, I would like to hold a moment of silence for my son's education. or should I say the one he was robbed of.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Samantha Oliveira, and I believe you all received an email from me, this folks. And I'm here because I'm a parent of a child with special needs, and from my own experience, it can be very isolating, and you feel you're alone, and I just am here to tell parents you're not alone, that all of us are going through the nonsense that we are. I mentioned before, I'm a special education segregate parent. I'm a special education advocate. I'm a parent contact for Family Ties of Massachusetts, and I'm also a substitute teacher in our district. I've lived in Winchton for 22 years. I did forget to mention my previous role as the co-chair of the Special Education Parent Advisory Council, which I stepped down from after almost 9 years. In this role, we went to workshops and trainings and appeared before the school committee several times to share what we learned. In this role, I worked with several SPED directors and superintendents. However, due to my lack of faith and trust and incompetence of Nicole Haro, I stepped down from this position. The other officers stepped down as well for their own reasons. I honestly do not know why Nicole Haro still holds a position in this district. Why hasn't our superintendent done anything about her? He doesn't seem to have any issue putting staff on administrative leave, so why is she still here? In the past, I have strongly disagreed with decision Mr. King has made, including what I feel is setting the stage for all of this by not keeping Suzanne Michelle. She was a roadblock for him. It seemed he wanted to do what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it, and Suzanne was an amazing advocate, and he let her go. I had the privilege of working with her for 19 years in an administrator-parent relationship. She was in our district for 23 years. She loved her job and adored her students. She wore many hats in this district and left behind some big shoes that are still not filled. She knew families in our district from the time the students started pre-K until they graduated. She cared and poured her heart and soul into this district. Parents knew she was competent and they knew they could trust her, which is something I cannot say about Nicole Haro. But Mr. King decided to let her go, the first of many staff that cared for our students to be let go. Why would you let someone who loves this district and its families leave? Don't we want our staff to care about our students? The fact that Nicole Haro still holds a position should be concerning to all of us. I personally have filed 2 complaints with DESE, and I filed my 3rd today because I requested files and important DESE documents were missing from that file. In my 18 years as a parent of a student with special needs, I have never filed a complaint under any other director. I do not take filing a complaint lightly, but in my opinion, timeline compliance, confidentiality, and missing documents are very concerning, and they are the utmost importance in special education. The most recent complaint I filed was for breach of confidentiality. Nicole Haro sent me an email with another parent's name on that email regarding extended school year services for my son. Whether it was done by mistake or with malicious intent, it doesn't matter. It's a breach of confidentiality. She has apologized to me. However, it's a clear example of her gross incompetence. DESE is currently investigating to determine if this violation is of a state or federal level. I will be pursuing this and seeing it to the end. My first DESE complaint was for non-compliance of IEP timelines. On September 22nd, I emailed Nicole and requested a consent to evaluate my son. The legal requirement is that I receive the consent to evaluate within 5 days of the date of my request. All evaluations should be completed within 30 days of receiving my consent form, and then we should be meeting within 10 days to discuss the results of the evaluations. If those timelines were followed, our team meeting would have been at the beginning of December. We did not meet until February. We had a meeting before Christmas break. We had a meeting scheduled before Christmas break. However, I did not receive all the reports that I requested to receive 3 days prior to the meeting.
Ms. Oliveira?
Yes, sir.
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. You have to do your job. That's fine.
We've just reached our time. I just want to check and see if there's anyone else in the hall that would like to make a comment.
It is my legal right to request and receive these reports, and it is my right to reschedule the meeting if I have not received those reports. I should have received my son's IEP within 10 school days of our meeting. Without using a calculator or looking at a calendar, one can see the entire timeline process was never followed as required by law. I received my son's IEP after I filed my first complaint. Only after I filed my son's first complaint with DESE on March 7, 2022. I don't know the exact date that I signed it, but that should be on file in the SPED office. I requested copies of everything in the file, but conveniently all consent forms that I have signed and dated since Nicole Hero has been our director are missing from the files I received. This is a DESE required document, and when requested by parents, it is to be made available. Other things that should have been in there, anything from early intervention, IEPs, progress reports, evaluations, consent to evaluate forms, any signed pages of the IEP, meeting notes, outside evaluations, and any relevant doctor's reports. Shortly after filing my complaint with DESE, DESE sent an email which included Mr. King, Nicole Hero, and myself. They requested that the district review the matter, report their findings to DESE, and include a corrective action plan. This email went ignored. The school district was found in noncompliance because she ignored it. It was only after the due date set by DESE for those corrective action plans and reports had passed that I emailed DESE again and let them know I still hadn't received the reports and would like to know the next steps of action. I included Mr. King and Nicole Hero in this email. Nicole's response to this email was that she had already sent it and she wasn't sure what happened. She said she would search her sent emails and get back to us. She never found that in her sent emails. The failure to produce evidence that she, in fact, sent it from her email is a clear indication of being lied to. My email to DESE was sent out on Friday. I finally received corrective action plans 4 days later. The validity of these reports is questionable and deeply concerning. There was no district letterhead, no timestamp, and no one fact-checked her. Does this sound like someone who is serving our students' best interests? I don't think so. So the big question is, why is she still here? In closing, please be aware that Nicole Hero used to work for DESE, so not only does she know that she should be doing better by our students and staff, but she also knows the loopholes of DESE.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes.
Hi, my name is Alexa. I've spoken here multiple times, and multiple times I have not been helped. I requested my SPED report 14 business days ago. It was supposed to be with me within 10 days. I emailed Nicole before I picked up my report to make sure that it was fully completed. She stated it was. Sure enough, it wasn't. I have yet to receive my completed file. My IEP meeting is on the 7th. That is in 4 business days. When am I going to have my son's reports? My advocate is waiting on this, my attorney is waiting on this, and I need them before the meeting. My attorney and advocate will not have enough time to review these so I can properly address his IEP meeting next week. I have waited over 2 years now to get my child the proper help, and now you are delaying it by not giving me this information. I feel like this is intentional now, and it's to cover all of her mistakes and your mistakes. You had an evaluator last year that specialized in dyslexia and dysgraphia say that he needs help, and you ignored it. I am now trying to get him help, and again, and you are getting in the way of it. You yourself, the school committee, emailed Ms. Haru to get answers. Did you get them? Because I sure didn't, and I haven't heard back from you either. It has now been over 3 weeks since my meeting with Mr. King. Still no follow-up on my concerns or action plan of what the outcome will be. I am not moving from this seat until I have answers. You are now in non-compliance, and I will not move from this seat until you answer. Nicole is here, Mr. King is here, and you are here. The whole gang is here. Someone can give me an answer immediately on when I'm getting my child's file. His IEP meeting is next week. I have already filed another complaint with DESE on Nicole, and now you as a school committee, as you have failed to help me and have failed to assist my child. You state here week after week that you are the kid's advocate. Where are you advocating? Who is getting these answers? Absolutely nobody. I need answers, and I need them now, or I will not move.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak?
I mean, I want to speak, but I want to sit in that chair, so when you get her answers, I'll speak.
Okay. Anyone else would like to
You
speak?
can blatantly ignore a parent asking for help. I've already emailed you multiple times. I've emailed you multiple times, and I'm waiting on an email from Nicole. Who is to help me? You told me to follow my channels. I followed my channels. Now what do you suggest?
We won't, unfortunately, engage in a dialogue during this session,
So you're not responding to emails, and I can't get anyone to answer the phone at the school, so where do I get someone to respond to dialogue?
I have to invite other people up to speak, Ms. Lassard. I'm terribly sorry to not be able to
That's
engage
fine.
with you right
Buckle
now.
up, everybody. I'll sit next to her and speak.
Okay.
So I also have requested my student's education file. And I am not like everybody else in this room. For whatever reason, Mr. King does email me with updates, but I still don't have my file. I'm on day 29 today. You had 10 days. 10. You know that because you've been CC'd on my email. And I've also sent his responses back to you all. So you know that you have 10 days, the law is very clearly stated, and you know that I haven't received it, and yet the person that does that has not been put on personal leave, hasn't lost their job, hasn't been non-renewed, and the person that oversees that sits over there, and the person that oversees him sits in front of me. I'm just wondering, are we just picking and choosing who we're gonna go after in this district? Ryan, Anyone that Ryan, advocates for the
it's my
kids.
turn now. You had your 6 minutes.
I'm just wondering if you would send your kids to this district knowing what you know, because your kids don't go to this district. Maybe you can answer that at the next school committee meeting so we don't engage in dialogue. But I don't think you would. So what do you want parents, like us, to do when we can't get what we need? I want my kid's education file so I can get him the hell out of this district, because you're not doing your job. And he does have options, as you heard him say. I'll take that as 3 minutes 1. 3 minutes 2. What that child behind me said to you about the athletic department stands true for every single child that plays in your athletic department. We do not need another teacher taking over a stipend position. That is a position that in this district is not a stipend position for any other school around here. I don't care why you don't like Jenna. I don't care what you think she did. I'm getting a little tired of your motives with the people that actually care about the students in this district. Bring her back. Bring her back, because right now, you have no fall coaches set up, and you don't have coaches that want to come play for anybody else but her. The only thing that you've got going for you right now is an athletic department that's headed in the right direction, because her department is headed the opposite direction. Do something right. The reorganization was for you. That wasn't really for us. We're not stupid.
Thank you. Ms. Keddy? Other comment? Yes?
My name is Chelsea. I have 2 children in the school district. I have a 6th grader and a 5th grader. My 5th grader is special needs. He needs support. He's been denied 3 times. I have hired a special education lawyer because Nicole has denied him 3 times, and my special education lawyer is saying that what she's done is not legal. So now you have a 5th grade child coming home every day from school crying. He hates his life, he hates himself because he gets bullied. He cannot understand the material he is learning. I requested his student files on May 3rd. I have not received them yet. I'm on day 29. I've received a portion of them. There was no special education paperwork in there. I filed the DESE complaint. DESE told me that anything that has his name on it should have been in that file. But what was in that file was another child's birth certificate. I do say. So I would like to know, because I emailed Thad and all of you 7 days ago asking when I was going to get his paperwork, because I need it for the special education lawyer, when I was going to get the information, and I have not received a reply back. I also requested my older son's file and have not received anything. I was told it was ready for pickup. My husband had to go into work late, lost income to do this, goes to pick it up, and the secretary of the middle school would not give it to him because it was not complete. I don't understand why I can't get the help and support for an 11-year-old child that is begging for help and support. This is a problem, and nobody's doing anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Good job. Were any resources provided to you whatsoever, even though he was denied an IEP? Any outside help?
No, they are not. I had to pay out of pocket $5,200 for a neuropsych. Now I've hired a lawyer because I cannot get him the support that he needs. The psychologist that did his neuropsych is saying we are most likely going to get an ASD diagnosis, a learning disability diagnosis, and a social and emotional, a learning disability diagnosis and a social emotional disability diagnosis on top of severe depression, anxiety, and ADHD.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Other comments? Yes.
Hi, my name is Tracy DeLine Barrows. I am a resident of Winchendon for 54 years, a graduate of Murdoch High School. My husband also is, and both of my children, 2018, 2020. Our district is falling apart, and I don't want to get emotional. We are losing some great people. I work with James Mercier, our music teacher, who has been amazing. I'm an employee at Murdoch, at Memorial School, and I've worked for the district for 17 years. And Shantae Gilson also is a big loss if we let her go. All I have to say.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes.
Hi, my name is Joy. I told my son I wouldn't speak tonight due to embarrassment from last time I spoke at school committee, but too bad, right? I have 4 children here. I did speak up last time. I left here very hopeless, I have to say, to be quite honest. I went home. I left here early because I couldn't anymore. I walked out. And I went home and spent the night Googling other school districts, private schools, how to get my son's IEP to transfer over, everything, and spent the next few days doing the same. I did not sleep. And I heard the news that, when we got the email about putting the reorganization on hold, putting a pin in it, I did breathe for a minute. Not that I thought, everything's all great, but like this little glimmer of hope. So I pulled back for a minute, like, let me breathe for a few minutes. And my son, who's a junior, came to me and said he's decided to apply at Oakmont. Next year is his senior year. He said he started with the best, okay, right here from preschool. He's never wanted to leave the school district, never had a reason to, never had academic problems, never had issues with teachers. He's in athletics, and he said, all my friends are leaving. I have no friends next year. His passion is basketball. He's afraid to wait until fall, because what happens when there is no basketball team or athletics is falling apart and it's his senior year? He doesn't want to wait for that. And you know what? So I said to him, let's just wait. Let's just breathe. And then I'm like, am I crazy? Like, I think my kid is the smart one here, So, I'm going to support what he does, but it would be pretty sad. You've gone all this time, your senior year, he's doing great, all A's and B's. Like, it kills me to have him potentially graduate somewhere else, but that just shows you, where our kids are at as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Others? Yes, please.
is Olivia Oliveira. I've lived in Winchendon for 22 years, and I worked in the school district for a couple years as well, and on a volunteer basis with the special ed department. And having a brother with Down syndrome, I grew up with special education being a passion of mine. And now that I've been outside of the Winchendon School District working in Keene, I can see why I will not be sending my son to Winchendon Public Schools. During COVID, I was let go. I was a one-year para, so I understood those circumstances. I worked as a private para for a couple of families, which I'm happy to do for anybody else in this room who needs private services to help their child reach their IEP goals. But with my mother being the passionate advocate she is, it's really hard to see her pour her soul into something and kind of be given a side eye or like a push to the side. I hope that you guys are able to take people's comments and concerns tonight and make what needs to be done happen. And thank you for all that you do for the schools. I know that probably tonight it's hard, you feel like you're under attack, and I hate to see that for people to feel that way, but in the same breath, it's people's kids' education is on the line, and that's not something that people toy with. And I never really considered that until having my own son, but yeah, I just hope that the changes are able to be made. And again, if anyone needs help with their child's IEP, my mom's happy to help, and if they need help reaching those goals in a private situation, I'm happy to help with that as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Others? Yes, please.
Brenda Kenny, 22 years as a kindergarten teacher in a memorial school. And I just wanted to say, someone was talking, Mrs. LaPointe, is it? Was asking about why we wouldn't want the reorganization of the schools. And I can say 100%, everybody wants to have every child here in preschool, ages 3 and 4. How wonderful would that be in our district? We all want it. What we need is a cohesive plan before it goes through, because there was just too many questions. It was like, well, is the playground going to be done? No, but is it going to be fenced in? Well, maybe not. Is this going to... We just couldn't see, because we just love our kids. We couldn't see putting 3, 4, and 5-year-olds over at a high school that I graduated in. We asked about the lockers. They're up high. They're not going to be taken down. And they all have doors. It's like, well, how many fingers are going to be pinched in there? Can the doors come off? That we didn't get an answer. So all I wanted to make sure is that the town of Winchendon knows that our district is more in approval for that, program. We need it. We all agree we need that program, but we need a cohesive plan to go with it first. We need to, have a plan in place, and it wasn't really going to be that different this year in 23 of September anyway. So we all hope we do go through with it, but we also hope that each child is in the building that's for them. We have our little school with little counters and sinks and toilets and all the things that were made for them. And to just put them in that high school, after working with them for 22 years, it just wasn't going to work. I mean, it wasn't the best idea in our opinion. So that's all. I just wanted the people in town to know that we are all for it. If we can get every child in this town, 3, 4, and 5, to school, that would be wonderful. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kenny. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Kelly Williams. I'm a para at Memorial. I'm kind of building off of what Brenda just said. It is a wonderful idea. I would love to see something like that happen, but we can't put kindergartners in a 70-plus-year-old high school. That building, we need a new school, and I'm sure a lot of parents around here may agree with me. That school is not sufficient for any of our children. It's a 70-plus-year-old high school. It's decrepit, it's smelly, it just needs to go. We need All the towns around us, Ashburnham, Gardner, Baldwinville, Templeton, they've all built these beautiful new schools that are up to date, up to code, have the things that we need for these children that we can meet the needs of these children. And that's our goal. That should be our goal, is to meet the needs of the children, and we can't do it in that building. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you for your comments. Other comments for the school committee? Yes, sir.
I don't bite.
When I first heard about the redistricting or the restructuring in November, I kind of put a halt to all of my rebuilding over at Memorial. I stopped painting. I stopped preparing for the future, knowing that the future was not going to be a sure thing. And as committees were being built and teachers were complaining that their voices were not being heard, I saw that there was no place for specials to be able to discuss what the needs were going to be for music and art and PE in these committees, as these committees were class-based and they were academically based. And at that time, I scheduled a meeting with Thad King to discuss what the needs were for the district musically, from my experience as a district music director over at the R.C. Mahar Regional School District. And in that meeting, there was a telling moment when I said that I was concerned that these committees were not going to have the voice necessary for music to be able to state their needs. And to paraphrase, Thad King chuckled and said, well, no decisions are really going to be made in those committees. And that right there is the telling problem of how leadership is happening at the top level here. Leadership is not management. Leadership is empowering the people underneath you to do their jobs as best as they can in the way that they do them. That doesn't count as my 3 minutes. Leadership is giving the ball to the people underneath you and letting them run as far as they can with it and opening the door for them when they need it. Leadership is listening to the expertise of the people underneath you. I have not heard a single teacher speak against the restructuring. Not a single teacher has said this is a bad idea. It has all come down to the method in which it is being done, where teachers' voices are not being heard, teachers' concerns are not being heard, teachers' ideas are not being heard. And it is your teachers that know. They know what they are doing. They know what their jobs are, and they need to be led to do those jobs. Shante Gilson is not my friend. I do not jive with her on social issues, nor do we see eye to eye on politics. And from my experience, her off-work personal interests seem to revolve around golf, golden retrievers, and floating around on a boat. I do not golf. I love them, but I cannot handle owning dogs. And my boat is a yard decoration with a hole in it. I will fix it eventually. I do not need her to be my friend. As a teacher, I need her to be my principal. I need her to empower me to do my job. I need her to keep my needs balanced with the rest of the teaching staff. I need her to green light my curricular decisions as a music educator and support me when I inevitably need a hand, as anyone does. I need her to understand that I am the person who knows best for what my students should be doing musically and how to do it. And these are the same needs of every teacher. We just want to do our jobs. Shante Gilson meets those needs with vigor. She champions her teachers, and I trust her to be fair and honest. She says what she means, and she means what she says. Simply said, she is an excellent leader. The teachers' polls last meeting that I gave were overwhelmingly damning in condemning Thad King as a terrible leader, and yet Thad is here, and Shantae is on the way out. I don't think there's anything left for anybody to say that would add to this argument. It is either heard and dealt with, or it is ignored to the detriment of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Other folks that would like to address the board? Not seeing any.
Is there a point? Is anything going to be done?
Please, would you like to
We
speak?
all address the board, but nothing's being done. Is there a point to any of us speaking? How many times do we have to complain? You said, so the other thing too I thought was really funny, when the interview was posted with Mr. King, you gave a direct reference that the schools he's turned around were the elementary school and the high school, and he was working on the middle school. I don't know if you saw the climate surveys. Your middle school did the best out of those three, so I'm not really sure where that came from. But that's my 3 minutes, but I'll still stay here until I have answers.
Thank you. Others? Not seeing any? Okay, we will move on to the next parts of our agenda. The next part of our agenda is old business, and I feel like this portion of our agenda needs a slight explanation. We have on here a number of votes from our last meeting, which was in mid-May, when the committee members that were present for these votes, we had a member that had not been fully sworn in yet after the change in membership. And so by state statute, those votes are null. And so in order to cast those votes or recast those votes, we do require a re-vote. And so on your agenda are the votes that were taken at the last meeting. These are votes that were successful. I believe we had some votes that were not successful, which are not included here. And the minutes from our last meeting are not concluded yet. The secretary has not typed them all up yet. So forgive me if they are not exactly accurate. But the votes that were on there were relative to the subcommittee assignments, the acceptance of the school committee meetings, minutes, from April 27th, and the field trip for the all program at the high school. And so if any member is interested, happy to take a motion to accept all or individually these votes.
Well, Mr. Chair.
Greg?
I wasn't quite sure how to do all of these at the same time, but so may I suggest that we go on one at a time?
Yep.
In that case, I would move that we approve the subcommittee assignments as enumerated on the sheet included in our packets for this evening for the 2023-2024 school year.
Second?
We have a motion and second to accept the subcommittee assignments as described at the last meeting and as included in your packet. Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll start with Karen.
Aye.
And David?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Alicia?
Yay.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much. Happy to accept a motion on any of the other votes.
Mr. Chair,
Karen?
I will move to approve the minutes of the April 27, 2023 school committee meeting as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion? Those minutes have not changed. They are still in your packet. They are the same as they were presented a couple weeks ago. All right. Any other discussion? Okay. Alicia?
Yay.
Greg?
Aye.
David?
Abstain?
Yep. and Karen.
Aye.
And so that is 401. Thank you very much. Happy to take a motion on the third, if there is one.
Mr. Chair,
Greg?
I move to approve the all-program Murdoch High School Leadership Class field trip as presented.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. The description of the field trip is in your packet. We did have that description last time, but Alicia wasn't here. Alicia, would you like to hear the description, or?
I read it.
You read it. All right. So then, any other discussion? Okay. We'll start with the vote. Karen?
Aye.
And David?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Alicia?
Yay.
And the chair votes aye. It is unanimous. Thank you. We do not have a consent agenda that I am aware of tonight. Like I said, I do not believe that the minutes from the last meeting are done being typed up, and I don't think we have anything else. Yeah, okay. Which brings us to the superintendent's report and Mr. King.
Sure, thank you. I think we're starting with, yes, budget update this evening, so I'll ask Ms.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes?
Can we just make a note that there are packets available for the public?
Yes. As requested at a previous meeting, the school committee has begun to offer information at each one of the meetings. We will be including the agenda and packets of information to the extent that we're able to. They are up here on the front table. If anybody would like one, you're absolutely welcome. Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. King.
Sure, so I'm just going to turn that over to Ms. Babinski to give us a budget update this evening.
Good evening. So I feel like I should just go through it really quickly because Mr. LaPointe has not had a budget report yet, if that's okay. So we have two reports. One is a Munis report, which is simply a printout from our district software, which gives you an exact figure point in time. This report is reflective of all expenses through May 26th. One of the systems that we use for payroll is called Harper's, which is a secondary system. As such, we don't encumber our salaries. So on the Munis report, you'll see an encumbrance or an available budget of over $2 million, which is really not accurate because we've obligated salaries for teachers and whatnot for the month of June. So we've implemented a secondary budget summary, which is this Excel spreadsheet that's kind of color-coded. So I always share that these are our forecasts for the year. It's just a little bit more transparent for school committee members to know, sort of our exact point in time based on our allocations. So you'll notice that all the year-to-date actuals are real figures based on the report from May 26th. And then anything color-coded in orange is our salaries forecasted through the end of the year. So for example, if there's a particular salary line item, we've simply taken that person's biweekly pay and multiplied it by the number of remaining payrolls so that we can sort of see where it's at. This is important because we budget a full year and a half sort of before things actually happen. And so we naturally see migration throughout the school year of district personnel and need to be sort of aware. There's a big difference between a master's plus 90 step 13 teacher and a bachelor's 1 step teacher. And so as migration happens and as even movement within the district happens, the budgets change, and we really want to make sure that we're forecasting correctly. One of the things that we've discussed previously is net school spending. So the state law requires us to spend a certain amount of allocation on the education of students, and our budget is very, very close to what that number is. There's not a big surplus for the budget, and so we really need to make sure that we spend every penny or as close to the penny as we can. And so it's important, especially this time of year, to sort of know what's left. So anything that's color-coded in pink is what we are expecting based on stipend positions that we've received. We have a lot of clubs and athletics, coaches, things like that. So obviously we have not paid the spring coaches yet, but we do have an idea of what to expect for those things and those clubs and whatnot. So that just kind of explains the form here. On the far most right column, any line item that is in the negative, there is a note just so that you know sort of what my plan is. I am working very closely with Ms. Medina, the town accountant, who is also new to the town of Winchendon. We have requested budget transfers, we've requested some grant amendments, we've requested some reclasses. They're processing all of those. A lot of those things have not yet been posted to the Munis report. So I'm working very closely with her to sort of clean up the end of the school year. Every accountant has their particular practices, and so next year it'll be outlined a little bit differently. But as we clean up this year, we really have to work with what we have. Any account that is negative just sort of tells you if we plan to do a reclass and potentially what account number whether it's to a grant or within the general budget. And then there's some transfers that you'll note. There's nothing in here that's concerning to me. And at the end of the available budget, you'll see currently we are anticipating around a $300,000 surplus. And so we are working with all of our departments to make sure that they spend and are requisitioning anything that is still outstanding so that we know exactly where we stand. We do typically have some facility and technology needs that are just sort of your ongoing preventative maintenance and ongoing needs that we do that typically do come in around this time of year. So I anticipate us fully spending our allocation from the town and being in good shape for next year.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Greg.
I just want to make sure I understand. The accounts here right now that haven't been fully spent, are those going to be, once outstanding bills come in, we're not going to have money going back to the town or any other?
That's correct. We simply are so close in net school spending that we don't want that to be the case. We want to spend every penny.
Right.
Some communities will have a large surplus, and then if they're close, if they give a couple $1,000s back, sometimes they have that go towards capital planning projects, and there's an agreement with the town, whatever it may be. They may not be spent directly on the line item that they're allocated for. For example, it's really not appropriate to be buying any curriculum material or education supplies at this point in the school year because any FY23 funds are required by law to be spent on FY23 needs. And so, if we were to order books right now, they're not probably going to be used by students. So this is why we use those for some of your ongoing facilities and technology needs. But yes, we do have plans for all of the funds.
Okay, thank you.
I don't exactly know how you've done it previously, but typically, in my previous district, it was around July, you sort of knew exactly where all the transfers happened. I believe your policy is that any expense line can go to another expense line, any salary line can go to another salary line. But if, for example, we have a surplus with salary and we decide to spend it on, replacing security cameras or something like that, then that would have to go forth for a vote.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay, questions on the budget? Okay, thank you. Reorganization update.
Sure, thank you. Just a couple of quick notes. This has already been mentioned this evening, and I think everybody is well aware. We've paused the creation of our Early Childhood Literacy Center and/or organization at this point in time. I just want to mention that, excuse me, as a result of that, we will continue to focus on literacy. It's certainly not something that we're walking away from. But in terms of focusing on literacy, there's probably the likely sort of kind of recycling a position that's in the budget that we had added that we might now use as a literacy coach position to continue that focus on literacy, sort of similar to our current math coach. I may be using the wrong term there, but in terms of the actual title, but we currently have that for math, and we've contemplated having that for literacy and making sure that we're aligned kind of pre-K through 5. And with that, as we've talked about in this room a few times, we'll continue to focus on sort of our ELA standards audit and making sure that all of our standards are aligned, and then move into the formal curriculum adoption process for ELA for whatever the appropriate grade levels are there, K to 5, K to pre-K to 5, pre-K to 8, depending on, those look a little bit different once you get into middle school and high school, especially in ELA, but we will begin that work in earnest. As we'll probably start some of that in the summer, and it'll continue into next year with a formal adoption process. Oh, and then last, I'm sorry, my last piece. The other piece is relative to the budget, and I'll ask Ms. Babinski to speak to it a little bit. But as you're aware, when we brought the budget forward, we had to move a lot of things around in terms of where people lived, basically. Somebody that was currently in this building is now in that building and so on. And so there will be a lot of work to be put into moving those folks back where they came from. I know it sounds a little bit, it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but you have to figure that we take, months to create the budget, so it's going to take some time to sort of back out of it and get them into the right places so that when it comes time to enter our budget into Munis come July-ish, which is when we typically do that it's entered into the system in the correct places as we currently stand. I don't know if you want to speak to that any further or not.
Yeah, I just know in developing the FY24 budget, one of the highest priorities was making sure that we are allocating funds where they belong and sort of outlining the budget as such. And so, we did do a lot of work in sort of creating the budget by locations. It's certainly easier at this point to back out of it than it is to recreate. When we go to FY25 budget, it's still going to take me a few months to create, but this won't be quite that strenuous. But it is a little bit of a process, and I just made sure that Mr. King wasn't expecting that would be presented tonight, which he was not. He's very aware of the budget process, so we're just going to make sure that all the funds are where they belong.
Okay, I have a few questions regarding the reorganization process. First, I'd like to know why I had to find out that you paused the reorganization process, not from you, but from parents. Because quite frankly, you sent it out via Parent Square and not to the school committee at all. So to this date, I have yet to receive an email, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I did not receive an email from my superintendent saying, hey, just a heads up to my school committee that I'm going to be pausing this reorganization process. So it's concerning to me that you didn't communicate that to us before you even let the public know. So can you explain why you didn't feel the need to let us know that?
I will say that as a part of Parent Square, that we usually, or not usually, we always identify school committee members, yourself.
Not on it.
I'm sorry?
I'm not on it.
I can't speak to that. What I can speak to is who I selected as a person to be updated within the Parent Square update. One of those groups happens to be school committee. So the way that Parent Square is set up is that we can select different groups. Typically, the way we do that is we send to the Winchendon Public Schools, which would include all faculty, staff, et cetera. We have an option to choose parents. We have an option to choose, then we have other groups such as school committee. We have a group for external contacts, meaning bus service and/or food services. And so those are the typical pieces that we check to make sure that the messaging goes out to all the particular groups. We know that that's in that particular format. All the particular parties should receive notification.
Okay, then maybe I should ask, did the rest of you receive an email?
I did. I received it on May 25th through Parent Square.
And as chagrined as I was, yes, I received it.
Okay, so I'm the only one not included on that email list.
I suspect David may or may not because of
I
your...
got it as a parent. I think it came through as a
His
parent.
email was
so
not.
we need to correct
Mr.
that.
LaPointe's email was not set up at that point in time.
Right, but he received it as a parent of a Winchendon Public School student. So we need to make sure that I am added to that list because I seem to be missing a lot of emails from the district, apparently.
I don't think it was deliberate.
Excuse me?
I said, I don't think it was deliberate, Karen.
Well, I'm just saying that I don't receive anything from Parent Square, so we need to make sure that's corrected because obviously I'm missing important emails.
One of the things that we'll have to check is your own personal settings. So when we set up Parent Square, oftentimes folks are allowed to create their own settings, how you would like to be alerted, whether that's through a text, whether that's through email, whether that's through various settings. So that's one of the reasons we selected Parent Square is because it gives you control. as an end user. I have no idea what your settings are. I don't have purview into that. But the best I can do is ask IT to have a look and make sure that you're in that list, which I'm sure is just a part of sort of the typical list that we have for school committee, and ensure that you're in there. And if you are, I'll have him send you a link so that you can set up your personal settings as to how you would like to consume information.
I can assure you that when I was a parent, I got them. And that's the last time I set up any personal settings, was when I was a parent through Parent Square. I don't think I ever had it set up for school committee, but I could be wrong. But I will contact Bill myself tomorrow morning and ask him to help me with that.
That'd be great.
Thank you. The second question I had is that when you did send out this, which I did luckily see after a parent informed me, that we said there, you said there would be, everything would go back to the way it was originally going to be. As such, that created confusion, obviously. Everybody was like, oh, that means we get to keep all our arts teachers and our music teachers and so on and so forth. And I know you've had to send out, some information, or somebody had to send out some information or try to clarify. I think that we need to clarify what that means for certain positions that have been cut. Yet again, because you have let go of a principal and you have let go of, for whatever reason. So I think you do need to clarify how, if it's not posted, what are we doing? Because we as your school committee need to know what our plans are, because we need to have a principal in place for all of our schools going forward.
I'm well aware.
So, So I'm just looking. I'm just looking at the facts here. That when we hear that not one principal but two principals. That we have music and arts that now we went from reorging and meshing, and now we're unmeshing, and how are things getting unmeshed, and how is that going to impact the arts? And I just want to make sure that we're very clear going forward, like what's going to be left in the district and who's going to be left in the district. And maybe if we can just clarify that a little more for us at the next meeting, that would be helpful. I would appreciate that.
Happy to do it.
That's all I'm asking, please. And just, I know that we had all these budget things. I know you had the teachers already packing things. How are they coming with unpacking things? Because I know that some of our teachers were already packing up their rooms, and that's a lot of time and a lot of boxes. So where are we with that? I'd like to know how we're, did we buy all those boxes? Where are those going? What are we doing with them?
Yep.
Where are we
We started on
storing
buying
them?
boxes. Yep, absolutely. The packing materials, they were delivered. I don't know, I think it was right before spring break, right after, whatever that timeline was. Some teachers have started packing, others have not, but yes, those supplies were there. They had been delivered to the schools, as we said we would. The other component was the elimination of old materials, the shredding of old documents, those types of things that are legally acceptable. Those particular things are still on the table and still offered, and folks are still sort of cleaning out as an opportunity to get rid of old items. But in terms of unpacking, that's I couldn't give you an information anymore about how an individual teacher packed their room than I can about how they're currently unpacking their room. But at this point, when we met was, please stop packing. Feel free to unpack, and we'll pick up all the materials, whatever those materials would happen to be, from each of the schools.
Do we have somewhere to store all those boxes?
We had already stored them prior, so we had them for
Okay.
a while. So yeah, we have a place to store them. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure we
Yep.
do. And we're not ordering any more until
Nope.
we move forward. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Because that's a budget concern too. I think that's it for the reorg for right now, but I would appreciate that at the next meeting, if you could just give us like a spreadsheet or an org chart or something, just telling us where everybody is at this point. Who's staying, who's going, kind of thing.
I'll see what I can put together for us.
Mhm.
Amanda, the budget will be loaded in Munis July 1st, July 5th, something like that, right? So we have to move, hopefully.
I have met with the town accountant to ask about end of year and beginning of year procedures, and they're still very far behind. So we're trying to work through some issues and set up a protocol for the end of the year and beginning of the year. So it may be a little bit delayed this year.
So should the committee expect to spend time on analyzing the budget and reassigning the units at our next meeting?
So that's something that we've discussed, and unfortunately, I don't know if I have an answer for you right now. The overall budget allocation is not going to change, and I don't think that our salary and expense, sort of that first cover page, will change. The locations will change, obviously, like the total memorial budget, the total Toy Town budget, middle school budget, those sorts of things. And so how that looks, it should not change our salary and expense lines, I guess is what I'm saying. How soon I can get, I know we like to be able to review things ahead of time, but we're kind of working on that. So I hope to have a document at the next school committee meeting, but I don't know how early it's going to be, whether or not we'll have to review it at the meeting, or if you'll have time to look at it ahead of time. But the bottom line numbers, so it says like overall salary from the general budget, the overall expenses from the general budget, the overall salary from other sources, the overall salary from grants, those numbers are not going to change.
Okay. The way we make the reorganization stop,
correct,
official, is with the reallocation our role in that is reallocating those funds from early literacy center to
yes,
X school, Y school, and so we need to do that.
Yep.
So okay.
That makes sense. Yep.
Okay. Other comments? All right. District update.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to give a few things, to be frank, about some things that we've heard here, and just sort of give some updates around a few items that I'm able to give updates on and have some sort of hard information. And so I'm just going to, these are not in any particular order, but just as they sort of popped into my head when I take notes here. So one thing is that's kind of been brought up is sort of student mental health, social emotional issues of some of our students, those types of things. And I just want to say that, we completely recognize that students, are struggling in general with mental health and social emotional issues. And we're not alone in that. That's it's a typical piece right now as we've come out of COVID. And I think it's an important reminder. And it was actually hard for me to believe when I when I sat and thought about it. This is our first real year out of COVID. We actually shut a high school down last school year. I believe that it was in February, March that we stopped wearing masks. So I actually was off a year. I thought that we were further ahead than that, but that's how near we are to sort of the pandemic and the effects of said pandemic. But I think it's also important to note that our faculty and staff were impacted by that as well, and that they also experienced those sorts of things. Whatever that was for them. And I just want to sort of say that, the staff, our staff in general, are educated as educators, and so now trying to sort of re-educate, if you will, around social emotional in a more important and different way than we probably ever have in the past is an ongoing piece and something that, we take seriously. And so just kind of going through some of the things just real quickly that we have done for our faculty and staff themselves relative to mental health and social emotional is, we have long been working on training for what we call trauma-informed care. It's something that we've probably started as long ago as, 2018, 2019 type of thing. So a number of our staff received trauma-informed care training from, it's really medical professionals, quite frankly, and different folks receive different things. So if you're a social worker, you receive something, maybe their social workers bring it back, guidance counselors, et cetera. So that's the type of thing we've done. We've had a lot of training this year she's truly a preeminent behavior specialist in Jess Minahan, who's come on, and I think all of our teachers have sat in front of Jess Minahan and really enjoyed some of that training. But again, it's about working with kids. How do we work with kids around dysregulation and some of the problems that they're currently having? And a lot of those problems have come out of COVID. We have had a Safe Schools training by DESE themselves. That was this year on creating affirming and safe environmental spaces for all. So that's a piece that I believe just the middle school and high school receive directly as a type of training for all of our educators. We've talked about in here, and I think that Ms. Haru had talked about the Care Solace program for referrals to try to get our students help, but not just students, families, anybody in the community actually has access to that for therapy sessions. Of course, we offer, of course, in-school therapy sessions from outside providers. We always make space for that. And of course, our counseling and guidance staff have all their own individual trainings to maintain their certifications, to maintain their licenses if they're social workers, and so on and so forth. So, really across the board, we've tried to get training into all of our teachers' hands, one way or the other, over this year and actually before. We also send out pretty regularly out of Parent Square, and many other methods as well, frankly, but we send out numerous sort of free mental health resources to the community that are free and available to our families, and they're described that way. We work with Haywood, and I think Ms. Eldridge has been in here, and she's a person who works in that field and provides us with all sorts of opportunities for families that then we forward along throughout the year. So I think the other piece that's important to note that we have done over the past couple of years as we came out of COVID and was a part of our budget, I believe for last school year, so not the current school year we're in, but last school year, one of the things that we recognized, thinking that it was going to be a normal year, was that we needed more social workers. So historically in this district, we had one social worker for pre-K through 12. Amazing woman, was here for over 30 years. She did a great job, but it wasn't really fair to her over 30 years to be the only social worker K to 12. It's pre-K to 12. It's really different work between a high school kid and a kindergartner not getting on the bus or having struggles and those types of things. So, one of the things we did, we implemented at the beginning of last year was hire an additional social worker. So when our social worker retired, we added an additional position, one for elementary. So we had one that was sort of dedicated specifically to Memorial and Toy Town, and then a second that's dedicated, it was secondary and dedicated to the middle school and high school. Since then, over time, we've added as well, if I'm off the top of my head, we've added 2 additional social workers in the district, which are currently housed out of, they're both housed currently in the Memorial Building. We've hired, we were out without a BCBA for a while, so thinking about behaviors, we also hired a full-time BCBA this current school year. So those are just some of the pieces around sort of that social, emotional, and mental health piece, but I just think it's really important to sort of respect that teachers have their own pieces as well, and that they're dealing with, and we expect a lot of our teachers, and they do an amazing job, and I just want to make sure that we sort of identify that they're doing a fantastic job and the best that they can. And we'll keep offering more and more professional development as we go. Another piece that has come up is talking about transportation. We recognize that busing in general has been an issue in the district. We know that. You guys get lots of parent squares on that. We certainly try to stay in very close communication with our transportation company. We have had a few students over the course of the school year removed from the bus. For whatever those particular reasons happen to be. If a student is on a 504 or on an IEP, they receive private van transportation, and from the timelines that I have, those transportations were available within 5 days for those students that were removed from the bus and happened to be on a 504 or an IEP. So they were not in any way removed from school. So just the transportation piece. Complaints, which we've heard a lot in here from PRS, the problem resolution system through DESE, actually received, right before arriving here today, actually received a file specifically from DESE. We asked them for a report, an official report on the complaints, if you will, that they have received directly. And PRS is through DESE, and what they confirmed today is that since that 2017-2018, there have been 24 complaints, actually 22, but they broke up 2 of those to be 2 complaints. So somebody might have had a complaint about special education and transportation. They considered that 2 things. They fall into separate categories. There are a total of 24 on record with DESE. 12 of those, so that's since 2017-2018 school year, 24 total. 12 of those have been this year. 2 of those were in January, and 10 have been since April to our current time. So those are the official numbers that come straight from DESE, and I receive those maybe.
That's because parents are filing individual complaints and DESE is compiling them into one. Right. That's not an accurate number. We can give you that proof too. I know, I can't talk right.
Thank you.
So lastly, I just wanted to speak a little bit about district performance and sort of, how this district has performed, recently. There's a lot of talk of that in here. We heard a lot of it this evening. And there's a narrative that our district is performing poorly. And quite frankly, the data is the opposite of that. This is available on the DESE website. I'm not grabbing any of this from anywhere but DESE. In terms of DESE accountability, I would argue that we're in the best spot that we've been probably in the last 15 to 20 years with the highest accountability ratings, and it was raised this evening, highest accountability ratings on 2 out of our 3 schools that we have ever had. Both of those schools, I believe, off the top of my head, are in the 24th percentile in the state. The third school is below the 10th percentile, has been for an extended period of time. That's Toy Town. And, we're doing a lot of work in that building to raise that accountability percentile number. That's those
So
ratings.
Mrs. Vecino is doing great.
Mr. Chair, we've
Greg,
allowed people to speak without interrupting. Can you please let the superintendent speak without interrupting him? Extend him the same courtesy, please.
Thank you, Greg.
2 out of those two schools have probably out of turnaround status, possibly for the first time in the past 15 to 20 years. So we were the first district in this state 15-ish years ago. It's hard to say because DESE doesn't have it online any longer. It only goes back to, I think, 2014. But if I'm not mistaken, Winchendon was one of the first districts to be put in turnaround, possibly level 4. DESE has never really left, meaning that we work with DESE directly probably every other week. Have been since I've been here. And all 3 schools, currently we're down to 1 school that we have to work with DESE, provide improvement plans and so on and so forth, and work with them directly. We are currently only doing that in 1 school in our district.
Could you say that again? You had turnaround school, how many turnaround schools at what time and how many turnaround schools now?
We currently have, I know that there have been 3 turnaround schools in this district for an extended period of time. DESE has been here for at least 15 years, and when I say they're here, meaning they work with us in our district. That's not particularly a secret. We talk about it in here when we bring up data and so on and so forth. We currently are down to 1 building where we have to work directly with DESE. Currently, we do work with the middle school, but it was a sort of complementary money, if you will, to say, okay, you've gotten out of turnaround now, we're gonna give you a little bit for the next year, but we're not necessarily accountable to them for that at this point. We are still accountable to them for Toy Town, for what we call being a turnaround school. Like I said, we're doing a lot of work in that particular school, and we've seen a lot of data. In fact, they're going to be having sort of awards night coming up here very soon. They just finished a lot of their data work at Toy Town and very excited about the growth. I think they're having growth celebrations very soon for all of their grade levels, had some really great data.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Karen?
Just to be clear, when did these schools come out of turnaround status?
We had 1 come out of turnaround status, I would say, in the 2019, of course. So we got the results from the 2019 MCAS. Those come, of course, in the summer or whatever, fall for the following year. So 1 came out of in 2019, 2020. Would have been the year it was taken out and has been out of turnaround since then and has maintained the 24th percentile as we came out of COVID. And then the middle school came out this year.
All right, so that was starting in Joan Lander, under Superintendent Landers, and you've continued it.
I'm simply saying to you, Karen.
Right, no,
that we have 2 schools out of turnaround. I'm talking that we have a successful district right this second.
Right, but I just want to be clear that turnaround of these schools was under 2 superintendents, not just 1.
Okay.
I just want to be clear on the
Thank you.
record.
Our grade 2 longitudinal data, and we've talked a little bit about this. I think we presented this, I don't remember when it was, back in April upstairs. Our grade 2 longitudinal data, since we began focusing on early literacy, is really no longer flat. What we have is some really fantastic data around reading, where we have, at this point in the year, for our second graders, and the reason I point specifically to second graders as sort of an indicator, is they're the ones who have received all of the sort of early literacy interventions that we've implemented, right? So seen as how this is really in our second to third year of this literacy approach. So their kindergarten data was a little different, and we presented that. We've seen where the proficiency of our second graders is extremely high, and what we just got today is that at least on the DIBELS, what we call composite scores, I'm not going to get into overly details there, but 71%. This year's second graders who, when they began as kindergartners, 71% of them were below or well below benchmark. As we sit today, we currently have flipped that around, and I believe it's 77% are now currently at or above benchmark. So really great reading scores. See you back there. So some really positive trends that we're really excited about as those students then sort of matriculate through the district. It is something I think that we have a lot of excitement about, and it's really a fantastic indicator. So those are probably a couple of big pieces. And then I want to talk about the other end, if we just kind of bookend this for just a second, and that's our seniors. And one of the indicators that we used early on sort of about aspirations in our district, and we'll look at one right across the way. If I just kind of go back a number of years, and one of the things that we looked at early in this district was the percentage of our kids who are going to four-year institutions. It's an indicator that a lot of folks look at. In 2018, 2017, I would say, I think we were about the sixth lowest high school in the state in terms of the percentage of students that we sent to college. The five that were below us were schools in Western Mass that were traditional vocational schools. So we kind of, going back over the years, pre-COVID, I would say 17, 18, 14% of our kids went to four-year institutions from Murdoch, graduating seniors, excuse me, that were still persisting. And I know, Dr. Forsythe, you know a little bit about this more than I do, but meaning when we say persisting, this data from DESE is that these students were still there the March following the year they graduated. So it shows a persistence level that they stuck it out past the first semester. That's the best data we have. Let's just say 17, 18, it was 14% of our students were at four-year colleges. In 18, 19, 30%. In 19, 20, 34%. In 2021, 32%. And those are COVID years that we're maintaining those numbers. But I think what's really interesting as we hear a lot about what's going on in our district in the shambles, if you will, just allow me a little bit of leniency about where these kids are going, right, in those 30-some-odd percent. This is since 2018. These are the colleges that our kids have been accepted to. They don't always go there because, but they're aspiring to these great places. This include, of course, all the schools in Massachusetts, all the state schools, you name it, they're all on the list. But if I kind of go outside of that, and this is a testament. I saw a young man here tonight. He's going to the University of Tampa. But we have NC State. These are accepted universities. These kids have been accepted there. NC State, Penn State, UConn, Virginia Tech, Northeastern, New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts, Johnson & Wales, Carnegie Mellon, Loyola Chicago, Clemson, Florida State, University of Florida, Arizona State, University of Arizona, Smith, congratulations, Harvard. We have BU, Mass College of Pharmacy, University of Charleston, WPI, multiple students, Pace University, TCU, Michigan State, Rensselaer Polytech, Rutgers, Hofstra, Savannah College of Art and Design. You're going to have to end with the University of Alabama, Roll Tide. But those are the universities our students, and there were more, but these are just the ones that I could scribble down. And I think to say that, we're failing and we're doing all these things is really, I think that list is a testament to our teachers pre-K to 12. That's not about the seniors. It's not about 1 year. That's about what they've been successful at doing in this district. And I think to say otherwise is denigrating our teachers, and more importantly, it's denigrating our students, and I'm very proud of the work that they've done. So that is my district update, sir.
Okay. Questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. That ends our our superintendent report. Yes? And we're turning to our student for our student report.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? No? Oh, you can. Now we can. This is my last report, so a little sad, but let's get into the upcoming dates. June 1st and 2nd, kindergarten screenings. There are no kindergarten classes these days. June 2nd is a half-day district-wide. June 4th is graduation. June 5th is the Murdoch Middle School District Attorney Anti-Bullying presentation. June 5th is also a dual enrollment information session. June 6th, 5th grade step-up day. June 9th, Memorial Fun Day. June 10th through the 17th is the Bridges to Community Service Learning Trip in the Dominican Republic. June 15th, there's a school committee meeting. June 16th, there's the Toy Town Growth Party. June 16th is the 8th grade transition ceremony. June 19th, there's no school because it's Juneteenth. June 22nd, 23rd, 26th, and 27th, there are half-days district-wide. June 26th is the middle school's field day, and June 27th is the last day of school. Kindergarten registration for the 2023-2024 school year. If your child will be 5 years of age by August 31st of the forthcoming year, they're eligible to enroll in kindergarten. Screenings will begin Wednesday, May 31st, and registration can be completed by filling out the forms in the link listed on the WPS website. Hard copies of these forms are also available for pickup at the office at Memorial Elementary School. On Monday, June 5th at 6:30 p.m., Murdoch High School will be hosting an information session in the auditorium for rising juniors and seniors regarding the dual enrollment program for next year. Family Math Nights. For Memorial, there's one on June 8th. For Toy Town, there's one on June 15th from 5 to 7 p.m. Join us for a fun-filled evening of games and learning. Help your child avoid the summer backslide in learning by engaging in educational activities that are both entertaining and challenging. Please RSVP by visiting the Winchendon Public Schools website. Memorial Fun Day. The Fun Day Committee is seeking volunteers for the Memorial School Fun Day 2023. This will be helping to run the events that are going on throughout the day. You will not be with your child's class unless they are at the event. Some events are inside and some outside. It is scheduled for Friday, June 9th. If you're interested in volunteering, please fill out the form below on the Winchendon Public Schools website. We'll be in contact with you with details once the date gets closer. For the Toy Town Elementary Growth Party, please join us as we celebrate your child's growth this past year. An awards ceremony with refreshments will follow. Just a reminder, this is Friday, June 16th. For the 3rd grade, it is from 10 to 10:45 a.m., 4th grade, 9 to 9:45 a.m., and 5th grade, 1:30 to 2:15 p.m. Then the middle school transition ceremony. On Friday, June 16th, Murdoch Middle School will host the 8th grade transition ceremony at 5:30 p.m. and a semi-formal dance immediately following until 9 at Murdoch Auditorium and Cafeteria. Memorial School Memorial Day Concert. On May 25th, our students at Memorial School performed in a concert in celebration of Memorial Day. Students from each grade level participated by singing as well as playing instruments. Good job to all of our students who performed. The Murdoch Middle High School Spring Concert was last Tuesday, May 24th. Our own middle and high school students performed in their last concert of the year. Students from choir, band, jazz band, and select choir all gave outstanding performances of pieces that they've been working on tirelessly. During the concert, we also said goodbye to our senior participating members of each group. Among them were Tiana Grassel, Abigail Guerra, Angelina Della Santa, Samantha Mason, Ren Lambert, Skylar Wynn, and Charlene Lohr. Seniors from each participating group had the opportunity to perform a senior goodbye song and work. Congratulations to our Murdoch Middle High School Music Department for the amazing show. For the Special Olympics, On Thursday, May 25th, a district-wide pep rally and opening ceremony were held for the Murdoch Special Olympics Games at Murdoch. On Friday, May 26th, students from across the district and neighboring Narragansett regional schools came to Murdoch to participate in a variety of games and activities. This year's games were held in memory of longtime special educator Kathy Damaris, who passed away on last year on June 19th. The day's events were facilitated by Murdoch Middle and High School students in Student Council, NHS, and leadership classes. A big thank you to Ms. Ellis and Ms. Gilbo for organizing. A great time was had by all participants. Excuse me. Memorial Day Parade and Murdoch Middle High School Chamber Singer National Anthem. This past Monday, members of the Murdoch Middle High School Select Choir had the privilege of singing the National Anthem at the Memorial Day Parade at Gar Park across from Old Murdoch. Additionally, Murdoch band member Bradley Whiteman marched in the parade and played taps at each of the locations that they had stopped at. Congratulations to the members of the Select Choir and to Bradley for his performance during the parade. The Murdoch High School Amphitheater opening debut. On June 10th, Murdoch Select Choir, as well as a student-written and produced play, will be showcased at the grand opening of the Winchendon Community Park Amphitheater. Performances will begin around 3 o'clock, so please make an effort to stop by and support our students if you have the chance. Bridges Community Service Project. Also on June 10th, 12 members of the Winchendon community will be departing for the Dominican Republic as a part of the Bridges to Community Service Project. Students and adults will build a home, create and paint a mural, and engage in other local activities while there. If you would like to donate to this project, please contact Ms. Rondo. We will be taking school and art supplies for those in the Dominican. The junior-senior flag football game. Last night, our juniors and seniors played in our long-standing Murdoch tradition of the flag football game. The seniors took the win with a final score of 14-0. Additionally, our male cheerleaders performed in choreographed cheer routines during halftime. Great game to all of the students who participated, and a much-deserved congratulations to the senior class. Senior send-off. Earlier today, Murdoch seniors were greeted by students and staff at both Memorial and Toytown Elementary Schools on their senior send-off. It was great to see the posters made for us by the kids and by our former teachers. Thank you. I tried not to cry the whole time. Then finally, for Class Day 2023, this afternoon we held our annual Class Day event to honor and say goodbye to the senior class. Regalia was awarded by various clubs. Academic and athletic awards were presented, and over $75,000 in local scholarships were given out to Murdoch graduates. That concludes my report.
Heck of a report. Make the last one a good one, right? A lot going on. Questions for Angelina?
I have one.
Yes, Karen?
How many of that 75,000 was yours?
I
Don't
won't.
answer
I
that. You
can't.
don't have
I
to.
can't answer that question.
That's okay. That was a joke more than anything.
Angelina, not to put you on the spot, and if you don't know this, this is okay, but do you know what the Growth Day is? You said that there was a growth celebration or?
Growth.
What is it?
What it is or when?
They're celebrating, Mr. King, I believe, also mentioned that they're celebrating their academic growth for the year.
Oh, okay.
The children's growth.
Okay. June 6th. Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Greg?
I don't have any questions, but I want to thank Angelina for being with us this past year. She's done a fantastic job. Her reports have been thorough. Great personality, good sense of humor. Keep the sense of humor. To me, that's the most important thing a person can have. And I'd like to say this is an example of what our schools are producing, and if our district is falling apart, let's keep doing it, because we got some pretty good people coming out of this district. So I'll just leave it there.
Thank you, Greg.
Other comments?
So this is from my daughter, my school committee daughter. Thank you. Thank you for walking me through all my iPad issues.
Oh, here, I bet.
And thank you for being the best seatmate I've ever had at school committee. No offense to you all, but I just wanted to thank you for, as Greg said, all the complete reports and for always giving us something to look forward to and all the good news that you bring. And thank you.
Thank you, Karen. I have a lot to say in my closing comments, so I won't elaborate too much. But I appreciate all of you, and thank you for this opportunity. And the flowers. Stop.
You're welcome. And she gets to make the motion to adjourn tonight, too.
We'll get there. Thank you, Angelina. Nice job.
I'd just like to, if I could,
yes,
Mr.
please,
Chair.
of course.
Yeah, so I've known Angelina for a long time, growing up with Camille in and around our house and in all the programs and activities you've been a part of. And I think what we need to send off with you, because we're very proud of you, because that, you know, Murdoch's being represented at Smith College, and that's a wonderful thing. But just remember that we're always still here. You know, you come back, we'll support you. You ever need anything, you want to do a legal internship at the LaPointe Law Offices, you'd be more than welcome to come back and hang out with us. So I want to wish you the best of luck, and thank you for making Murdoch proud.
Oh, thank you. I'm keeping that internship in mind.
Unpaid, by the way.
Let the record show.
We knew that was unpaid. That was implied.
All right. Thank you very much, Angela. Any others? Thank you, Angelina. Okay, that brings us to our subcommittee reports. I am not aware of any. Are there any reports from subcommittees? All right, not seeing any. That brings us to new business and our special education update. You'll recall, as our Director of Pupil Services makes her way up, you'll recall that a number of weeks ago, a request was made by the school committee to get more information about special education. We have heard a number of comments and desired to have information from the administration about where we stand with special education. And so tonight we have Ms. Haru here to share some information with us. Ms. Haru.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to talk about the special ed office and the department and what we've been doing since I started. I thought it was very important that there has been a lot of conversations about, and I'll address this right from the beginning, about our timelines. So I want to address that. We made a conscious decision when I started. When I started, it was in August, 2 years ago. At that time, I had one secretary who was holding down the fort when Suzanne Michelle left, trying to do the best things she can and do what she can do the best to help support me and to support the special ed families. That being said, my secretary, Kathy Brooks, does a fabulous job, but she's only one person, and I was only one person, and we had 2 team leaders to help support IEP meetings at that time. Those people were teachers. They were getting pulled out of classes every day for IEP meetings, and it was very concerning to me. We also had a plan where Kathy was going to work half-time as a preschool secretary. So we only had, when I started, a half-time secretary. We are already behind from COVID because IEPs weren't being held, meetings weren't being held, kids weren't coming to school. It was very difficult to assess the students and their needs when there was little time with them in the buildings. We did not receive another secretary until January of last year. That being said, I can only apologize for timelines not being met because my top priority for the students was to have my teaching staff in classrooms, working with our students. So we are doing our best and we're trying to make changes. It might be additional staff is needed at some time, because when
Can you let her speak, please?
Greg, please.
So sorry.
Folks, thank you.
So I would like to go through some of the slides that I decided to, that I thought was important, that what the IEP process is, so all the school committee members realize what, because some people aren't as educated. I know Karen has been an advocate of special education, and she's very knowledgeable. And I know we have new members who might not understand everything. So on my first slide, I'm talking about who is involved in an educational team meeting and who must be involved. The parent or guardian, a special ed teacher, a regular ed teacher, and then a district representative. The director of special ed, a building administrator, assistant director of special ed. Then we also need to have a person qualified to read the results of assessments on 3-year reevals. Those assessors, which I will go into more later in the presentation, do not go to our annual review meetings, which are held yearly for students. If a student is over 14, they have the right to deny coming to a meeting or going to the meeting if they want to. The people might invite other individuals or agencies to come to the meetings. They can invite a paraeducator, a guidance counselor, an outside mental health professional. DDS, when the student is transitioning to adulthood, often comes to our meeting as part of our transition planning for that student. So those are all the members that need to be present in a team meeting. I also wanted to go through the timeline of events, of what happens. And I have to say, this is where I feel our department is struggling. It's hard. When a referral comes in, it sometimes goes to a teacher. We don't necessarily find out the day of the referral that a parent has asked. We have to have in writing what, that they're requesting an evaluation. So it's sometimes if they send it over in inter-office mail, depending on when the mail is picked up, will determine. We only have 5 school days when we get that referral, and we must notify the parents and send out a consent for testing before any assessments can begin. We have 30 days to actually test a student for everything that we're looking for. And at that same time, parents have the right to bring any outside evaluations that they want to present to be looked upon. During that time, we do the evaluations, and at 45 days, we need to hold a team meeting. Testing results are due to a parent by law 2 days prior to the meeting. They are, need to have that report in order for us to move forward, so they have time to review the evaluations. We have our meeting at the 45-day or before, if possible. And if the child is deemed eligible by the team, it is not a sole decision of one person. The team has conversations together on whether the child is eligible for an IEP or not. If the student is not eligible for an IEP, and then I will show you the educational flow chart. And I can make these available to anyone else who wants them. The flow chart begins, and you have to identify if a child has any type of disability. But the most important question you have to answer, is the student making progress in the general ed classroom? Yes or no? If the team feels that student is making progress, you look at the eligibility flow chart, and it says that they are not going to have an IEP, but they might also have another plan. They can have a DCAP, which is district accommodation plan, that would be given to all the teachers, or they can get a 504. They have to have a diagnosis to have a 504. We cannot put anyone on a 504 plan without that diagnosis. It can be ADHD, it can be a mental health disorder, it even can be a specific learning disability. If a student has a specific learning disability and they're making progress in the general ed curriculum, they will not have an IEP if the team feels they're making academic progress. And I'd be more than willing to answer any questions from the board if they have any questions about eligibility.
Mr. Chair.
Karen?
So I think you need to clarify that a student with a disability, if they need related services,
Yes.
is also eligible for an IEP.
Exactly, you are correct, Karen. So when we do, well, I can go back to our evaluations. So our evaluations are not only evaluations for OT, PT, we do all those evaluations also. It's school-based evaluations. If a student needs to have a service in school to help them, they can qualify for an IEP. If it needs any type of modification to their curriculum, whether it is they're out on the playground and they need support because they have a disability balancing, if we need, they can have an IEP. So Karen is correct at that, absolutely. So we look at all eligibility very careful of what. It's just, an IEP is just not for academic needs. It can be for health needs, and that is a good portion of our students these days do have specific health needs that they might need a one-to-one aid, they might need accommodation in the gym class, or even a classroom walking upstairs. So it's very important. So all team members are there to make that discussion, and we get recommendations from the team on what the accommodations and modifications are needed by that student.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt again because we need to clarify it's not just health needs.
I'm
It's
sorry,
also-
can you-
It's not just health needs, it's also social, emotional. We have kids
Well, help
that-
you,
But we're not just finding, you can't just look at a child and tell if they have a disability. You can't just decide that a child needs, and I know that you're trying to give, you know, for people that are not living with it, that, you know, you are trying to make it clearer for people that may not understand. However, and this is my passion area.
I know
so
it is.
I want to be very clear that there are children that are going to qualify for an IEP that you are never going to look at or talk to or, you know, ever guess that they would need an IEP. And so we need to be very careful in IEP meetings that we're not just judging them based on whether or not they have A's or B's, because some students can have straight A's and B's and still need an IEP. So
I agree with you, Karen.
Right.
I
So
absolutely agree with you.
I just
But
want to
I
make
also,
sure we're
I
clarifying
also,
that to the
health
parents.
disability, when you talk about health disabilities, ADHD also, social emotional goes under a health disability also.
To some extent,
To
yes.
some extent. So, I just wanted to go over service timelines. We talked about the 45 days that a team needs to meet and determine placement. We also determine placement. We also determine whether our schools in Winchendon are appropriate for a student, and if we have their needs. And that's sometimes when we really see, as Karen was talking about, the social and emotional needs of students that we might need to support with a more restrictive environment. The consent, once we received it, this is really saying a lot what I've already said, but every year we need to have an annual review. Who goes to those annual reviews are the classroom teachers, any counseling staff that might be appropriate, and administration. Students will also receive progress reports every time we have report cards. And when we have the annual review, we will give updates on what's happening within the IEP. Every 3 years that a student needs to be evaluated and reevaluated for their needs. We have many students in the younger grades who are at one point in time on IEPs for speech only because of their concerns that they have, what their expressive language is. And then after pre-K, kindergarten, we're getting referrals that we need to do more additional testing because there's some academic concerns at that time. So I wanted to also share with you the roles and responsibilities of people in the department. We have the special ed teacher, who I feel really is the key to our services and our students. I don't think I need to read through every single one for you. You definitely are educated people on the board, so I don't think I need to go into full details. I think it's very important. One position that we added this year was our assessment coordinator. Our assessment coordinator evaluates the learning style, the program needs that a student has, whether it's a 504 or an IEP. They do classroom observations, and it helps us determine eligibility or supports and modifications. In the past, we had our teachers being pulled out of classrooms to do these assessments. Every time they did their assessments, they were missing time on learning with students, which was very concerning to me because we were getting such a high level of evaluation requests, and we still are. So having a teacher not leave the classroom, because then again, they were leaving the classroom to hold meetings. So you're having them do hours on end on one student of testing, and then they had to go to a meeting to report out on their testing. So now with the assessment coordinator, she is allowed to do the observations, communicate with the teachers of their needs and their concerns, and do the testing for all academic needs. Our school psychologist also helps with all her educational testing that we do.
Mr. Chair.
Karen?
I'm sorry. Ms. Hurrow, how many, do we only have one assessment coordinator for the entire district?
Yes. I strongly, when I go through our data, I would love to, I do have some recommendations. I think some of our issues with timelines is we have a lot of students getting referred for evaluations.
Secondly, what are her credentials for this job?
Well, it's same as a teacher doing that. She has her master's in education, and she has gone through lots of training on these assessments. And she is very knowledgeable on the different assessments that she needs to use.
Okay, so she has a master's in...
She has a master's in education.
In education.
Yes.
She has special education certification.
And she has special ed certification.
Okay, and she has all her certifications and all the different assessments and
Yes, so she
on
goes
and
through the
forth.
training to get the assessment. She went through Orton Gillingham training to also make some suggestions on different programs. She also has received training on through our companies that we work with through some of our assessments. She has training on GORT, the GORT assessment, and numerous other, CTOP, and many other.
What about WISC and
Oh,
and
yeah,
all
the
of
WISC and the WIAT. So right now, she does the WIAT on almost every student. She starts her testing using the WIAT, and after she reviews the assessment, if she thinks she needs to push forward and do more additional testing for language-based issues or other issues that might come about, she will keep on testing. And that's one benefit that we have, is that she has the time to be able to have more assessments done for the students.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So we also have our related service providers. Our related service providers, occupational therapists, speech and language, physical therapists, vision specialists, and one thing, a huge thing I missed to put on this was our adjustment counselors, which is our social workers in district. They do also service our students who have social emotional needs. They do their assessments, and they also service students. So they have a double whammy. They have a lot going on besides servicing, writing IEPs, and going to meetings. Our special ed secretary works directly under myself and the assistant director to maintain the calendar, and we're working again on compliance of regulations and timelines and scheduling and coordinating the IEPs and getting the IEPs necessarily out, which we're struggling with, as I said before. And I can't say more, that we're understaffed, because when we look at the next page, I'm going to start going through some evaluations, and I think it's very important for people to recognize how many evaluations this district is doing a year. This year, this district completed 42 speech-only initial evaluations. A lot of those initial evaluations came from our Memorial School. 25 students qualified for IEPs. The Memorial Speech Therapists completed 111 evaluations this year, which is extremely high. It is not the recommended amount of evaluations that one person does, knowing that they're also supervising our speech and language assistants, also writing IEPs, writing reports, going to out-of-district meetings, and supporting the needs of the students during the day. Our Toy Town, Murdoch Middle School and High School completed 35 evaluations this year. 7 are new students that qualified for speech. That came from recommendations from IEP team meetings, parents, and also teachers. And then this is, I think, one of the most strongest things that this district has done this year. We have over 10 students who have been evaluated for assistive technology devices. We have a huge population of autistic students with the ASD diagnosis coming into our preschool. 6 students, at least, if not more, have been assessed for communication devices and are using them regularly in school and taking them home to work with their families. We have many students in our all classrooms that are also using assistive technology devices. It is never so exciting to go to an IEP meeting of a preschool student as a progress or a transition meeting going into kindergarten, hearing the parent thrilled that they can actually have their student communicate with them. These evaluations are very time-consuming. They are very well worth us doing it. We contract out with one of the collaboratives to do these evaluations, but it is so necessary for these students. This is their voice, their communication devices, how they can speak to us. Their friends are now wanting to talk to them through their device. They're also using sign language in the preschool. We did training for our preschool staff and our paras on sign language. So having them have other forms of communication. But it's just thrilling to see the level of excitement in the students when they get their device, when their parents come into meetings and they say, my son and daughter has made so many changes. And they say they have to look at them on how to use it. Our speech therapists actually program the devices, so they have pictures of their family, they have pictures of their friends, they have pictures of dogs, they have pictures of certain food that they like to eat. All those devices are just such a benefit for any student, and we're getting more and more. Now that EI is up and running again, they shut down for a little while, they weren't seeing kids in their homes, we're getting a lot more referrals. We're doing 90-day assessments with the EI teams and the preschools and talking about what types of evaluations that might be needed for a student. So we do a 90-day, and then they are invited into a play-based assessment. So our evaluators can count down, which is really helpful. They do a pre-screening and then decide if we need additional testing. And then at that point.
Just to clarify for everybody, that's early intervention for anybody that might not.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. How many SLPs do we have on staff?
So we have 2 SLPs. We have actually, for the past 2 years, have posted for SLPs to be in district, and we have not had any applicants, unfortunately. This is not a Winchendon issue. This is actually nationwide issue. It is definitely a Massachusetts issue. So referrals for this year. So total evaluations that our evaluators did, and it doesn't mean every single person who is on the team did evaluation. So if there was not concerns for PT, speech, or OT, they might not have done the evaluations. But there was 145 evaluations. 98 of those evaluations were initial evaluations that either came from parents or came from student assistant teams at each individual schools. At Memorial School, 47 initial evaluations and 10 were reevaluations. So that means it was a student that actually had an IEP and they needed their updated testing. At Toy Town, we had 21 initial evaluations and 10 reevaluations. Murdoch Middle, 13 initial evaluations and 10 reevaluations. Murdoch High School, we actually had 9 initial evaluations and 13 reevaluations. Just so you know, as a senior in high school, it is very important that we reevaluate every student who is leading on an IEP, because IEPs are not necessarily recognized at the high school college level if they decide that they want to move on to college, and they need updated testing within so many years to qualify for DDS or any of the adult services. So having those evaluations your high school year is extremely important, and we want to make sure that the seniors, if they are going to college or going to need adult support, they have those evaluations to give them their support. When they go into colleges, they can take that testing and bring that testing to the colleges and bring it to the support center. We can develop, before they leave, recommendations on a 504 plan that they would be able, and a college will recognize a 504 plan, that if it's brought into the support center at the college. So we try to do that as much as possible. There are some seniors that say, I don't want to do it, I don't plan on going to college. We try to encourage them that it's important to have this, but you can't force them. So this year, there was only 13 students out of the 98 initial evaluations that did not qualify for an IEP. That does not mean that they did not qualify for a DCAP or a 504 plan. Those 504 plan is under the general ed laws. So, staffing, we talked about the speech and language pathologists. We never received any applications. We're constantly posting for those positions. We had a speech and language pathologist out on maternity leave right now, and currently we are offering Zoom sessions to the students who parents gave us permission to. Some parents have asked if they can do services over the summer and have direct services with a provider, and we're allowing that to happen on an individual basis. We also hired this year, a additional self-contained preschool teacher. Because of our needs of our students coming in, we felt it was very important that we have someone who has the qualifications to work with our students with severe needs at the younger level and give them the support that they need. We have a limited number of teacher applications. It is a nationwide issue. The district regularly posts for special ed teachers, and we're not receiving applications. We're contracting with the collaboratives for 2 speech and language pathologists, 1 speech and language pathologist, 2 assistants, our occupational therapists, and our physical therapists. We also have a vision specialist that comes to us from one of the collaborators. Unfortunately, that vision specialist has no more room on their caseload. So we are looking for vision specialists constantly to come support numerous students, which is a very hard thing also throughout the state to find vision specialists. I probably recommend most college students to go get that degree because there's no one out there. We hired an assistant director, which I started to explain before why we hired Caitlin Smith as the assistant special ed director. I felt personally that our teachers, with the number of vals that we are getting, are out of the classroom too much. They're not being able to service our students the way we need them because they're doing the testing, and I don't think we're getting a good demonstration of what we needed in the assessments because they wanted to get the testing done so they can get back in the classroom with their students. Now with our new assessor that we have, academic assessor, she can take the time and really process what assessments are needed to be given to the student to make sure we're getting the right picture of the student. So, and now Caitlin is doing a good portion of the meetings and helping us try to make our timelines. So programming in the future, we decided that because of our social emotional needs and academic needs, we are adding 2 positions. We have numerous students who I like to say they're bridge students. They are not our all classroom students who have significant, profound needs. They are students who might not meet the mold, who need some extra support. So we're having those at 2 different buildings where we feel our numbers for our needs are higher. Right now this year, we are having one of those positions at Memorial School, due to the fact that I can explain, and Ms. Hobbs is one of our teachers for our all classroom. She has 6 students who are coming up to kindergarten who are on communication devices. And then she has a group of students who have, are able to go out for certain subjects and go out with a paraprofessional and get support. So we didn't feel it was fair for those students to really not get what they need. And we've got the students who have the need to have more support needed that support too. It wasn't fair to mesh all these kids. And by law, we can only have, in a self-contained classroom, so many students with additional para staff, depending on what their needs are. We do in those classes also have students who have either a 2-to-1 paraprofessional or a 1-to-1 paraprofessional because of their needs. One of the most exciting things that I think we're doing, and many people have heard about this, right now, last year, we decided to bring the Orton Gillingham program to Winchendon. Prior to this year, we had no research-based program for our students who get C-grid services. It benefits those skills in early literacy, where we're seeing is a problem. The 9 trained teachers are now level 1 trainers, and I talked to you about this last year at the, I think Greg probably was here last year, maybe Karen was here, but they're level 1 trainers, meaning they can train. We spent the money to get them trained so they can train other individuals in the district, and we can build capacity within our own system. And our teachers will now learn the system. The Toy Town Elementary School has taken the program and ran with it, even farther than we ever expected. When the students first came, we had students who are red flagged that they might need the reading support because of their MAP testing or different evaluations that they were just classroom-based evaluation, district evaluations, that they might need additional support in reading. Some of those students, when they moved up from the Memorial School, were at a kindergarten level going into 3rd grade. Now I'm happy and pleased to say numerous of those students who were in the kindergarten benchmark are now making grade level or not have even exceeded what the expectations were in such a short period of time. The teachers in the classrooms are using some of the program within the classroom and the general ed population too. They're doing a fabulous job. The staff members also are certified to screen for dyslexia. They have a separate certification besides their level 1 trainers. This screener helps them advocate for students and they need reading support due to this dyslexia or other learning issues. So if a family comes to us with a dyslexia diagnosis from a doctor, because we are not allowed to give a diagnosis, only medical providers can do that. People like neuropsychologists will come in and they'll do that. We can take those and we can evaluate their results and decide what would be the best for them to learn. And we would use the Orton Gillingham program. So they also if we needed an expert witness in an IEP meeting or a mediation or anything going further, they can be the expert witness in that program to go and talk at the court. We also, one of our very exciting things is there's a program, it's a new curriculum that we purchased for our self-contained classroom. It's called Teach Town. It works on social skills, academic, and transitions. Some of our students have to have discrete trials within the classroom, and they use this program. It not only is computerized, but we purchase the actual books and materials, so those students who can use more materials in the classroom rather than just computer-based, they can use the paper version of different books. We use it also in, especially in the middle school, where they might be reading The Outsiders, and it might be a challenging reading book for students to read. They might not get all the innuendos in the book, where Teach Town also has it, The Outsiders. They give us a book we purchased, Outsiders with graphic novel of The Outsiders, and also the program also modifies the language in the book. So the students aren't feeling, yes, just because I can't read the same books that everybody else is. So they're feeling success, because what they can be in their classroom, their their English classroom, and then get pulled aside later on and have a modified version of a text to help them. So we're very excited. The teachers are excited to be using it. We've done training for them throughout the year and are going to continue the training to support that. So, thank you.
Thank you for that information. There will be times that members of an IEP team disagree on what an IEP should be. But I don't think there's a lot of disagreement about meeting the timelines relative to all of the things that you presented tonight. The meetings, the expectations of providing test results, the follow-up meeting, the establishment of the IEP meeting, all of those things are scheduled out by DESE, and we're expected to follow them. And I think one of your first statements was, we have struggled to meet those timelines.
Absolutely.
We have heard that from others.
Yes.
How are we going to meet those deadlines in the future? And keeping in mind that this is the board that has to make the hard decisions about where to invest when we have new or limited resources, what does this school district have to do to meet those timelines?
So it's a very good question, and I thank you for asking that question, because special ed, as you know, is a very expensive program to run in a school district. And as you said, we have limited resources. In the past, prior to my attending, we had 2 full-time secretaries in the special ed office to help us with the paperwork process, to schedule meetings. I have to also, I wouldn't do justice, I talked about our assistant, Kathy Brooks, who works extremely hard and is very dedicated to the school district. She not only helps with the preschool and supporting the preschool, but she also helps us with all our contracts, all our budgets for our out-of-district placements, and she schedules all my out-of-district placements meetings. So her hands are tied. So she's half-time preschool, supporting their needs, and which is a huge need because we have all those early intervention meetings that we're doing. So additional secretarial support, administrative assistant support to really help us with the process and meet our timelines. I think that is one of the most important things. A school psychologist would be definitely another thing, knowing the amount of evaluations that they do a year. Also in the past, numerous years ago, there was more than one, and this was prior to COVID, having an additional school psychologist for assessments, because I feel that there are many needs, and as Superintendent King and parents have mentioned, the social emotional needs, we have trained, our school psychologists can do things other than testing. School psychologists do social skills groups. They do individual counseling. We get recommendations that it would be great for the school psychologists to actually meet with students. Unfortunately, our hands are tied where we don't necessarily have that ability because of the amount of testing and meetings that she has to go to. So a school psychologist to help with those assessments. But I know the school's budget is not only for special ed.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just want to clarify something that Ms. Haru has sort of touched on, and I just want to be really clear about a specific piece. We actually, and I think if you were to go back and think about, and it's a long time ago, sitting in here for budgets over a year ago now. I know, Mr. LaPointe, you weren't here, but at the time, we spoke about concerns we had for literally our model, the way that we worked the special ed process in this district, which was alluded to where we had two, and I probably have the words wrong, but we had two sort of coordinators.
Team leaders.
Team leaders, one at the elementary level, one at the secondary level, that was one of our classroom teachers. Those folks received a stipend. They also received oftentimes an extra period of the day off, if I'm not mistaken. What we recognized was that those folks carried the burden for doing a lot of the things that were up here, all this testing and the different things that we were talking about. And we were actually having to give compensatory services, meaning to some of our special education students, compensatory services because those teachers weren't face-fronting with their students enough of the time. So we owed those students those services. So we made a decision over a year ago and talked about it in here about we wanted to take those two teachers, take those stipends, we took those stipends away, if you will, put them back in their classrooms full-time, to the best of our ability that any other special education teacher would be, so that they could be with their students as much as possible, because we felt like we weren't delivering services to our kids as sort of outlined in their IEPs, because we were taking them out of their classes too often. So we made a decision at that time to remove those two roles and instead hire what you've seen up here tonight is, sort of a district evaluator or assessor, I think is what we call it, and an assistant special education director to sort of replace those stipends and do those things so that we could keep our teachers in the classroom. And so that is the new model that we sort of adopted. We also have a secretary now and some of those things, but we're only a year into that particular model. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that, it's not smooth yet in terms of process, that we're missing timelines. I'll acknowledge that, but I think it's important to understand that we also shifted our model, and the way that we work directly with our special education students was the focus at the time, is that we felt like we weren't serving our actual students that were in special education at the time, and made a shift to be intentional about the way we did that. This year, and I think that Ms. Babinski mentioned it here in the budget process this year, she identified specifically special education as the next piece to what we wanted to really focus on from a financial perspective. We added what we heard here tonight, we added in our budget for this year 2 additional sub-separate classrooms going into this year. Our numbers of students that require what we call sub-separate classrooms, like our all room, are increasing. And if we don't have the space for those students, they go out of district. And so we have a number of students that are out of district. So one of the things that we're trying to do very hard is keep our students in district, right? And maybe get some back as well that are out of district for those services, because we didn't offer the types of classrooms that those students needed. So that was the investment this year, is to add those classrooms so that we could grow some of those programs. And as I said, Ms. Babinski mentioned that we recognize from a financial perspective, looking at our numbers, knowing that the number of students and IEPs in this district has, pre-COVID to today, has increased by 25 to 30% in those years. So again, we're coming out of COVID, we're in our first full year, and we have 30% more students on IEPs than we had, when we walked into, the pandemic. So we recognize that it's an issue, and definitely want to get all those timelines cleaned up, but I just thought it was important to hear that we did shift our model, and I think that's an important variable in sort of, what's happening here as well.
We just heard a recommendation for administrative staff to do the paperwork and other aspects that aren't necessarily student-facing. As we're about to consider whether or not the budget has to be reallocated due to the change in the reorganization, is that the time where we need to consider that we made an investment in special education with 2 new special education teacher positions in FY24, and those are student-facing. So, hurrah, right? But we are not meeting the administrative responsibilities of special education, and therefore, is there a more immediate need to invest there in order to do what we have to do as a district for IEP, for special education?
And I think it's an appropriate question, and I think as we're redoing some of this work, that Ms. Babinski and I are very happy to look at sort of what those needs are and what they, how we could allocate those in the current bottom line budget.
I'd be interested in certainly Karen's perspective as someone that has done this before. We've got the opportunity to invest in student-facing teachers, and we have the opportunity to invest in the administrative support that goes along with making a special education operation run well.
So here's my thought. We just added another administrator, so we have a special education administrator. Now we have a assistant special ed administrator, and we have a secretary. Suzanne Michelle and a secretary. And according to what Mr. King told us, he received a report from DESE that from 2017-2018, there were 24 reports on record from DESE complaints. Do you want to tell me again what those?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
That's
please.
since 2017, 2018. That is not in 2017, 2018.
No, that's what I'm saying, since 2017,
I just want to be clear so that everybody understands.
2018. Right, since 2017, 2018, we have received 24 complaints.
I want to be clear that those are not all special education.
Okay,
That's not the same thing. That is complaints, period.
okay,
Not the same thing.
all right, okay. Except for when you said it, you weren't clear on that.
I didn't specify special education or anything. I said complaints through the problem resolution system, which is what DESE identifies.
Okay, so, all right, so through PQA, the district as a whole has received 24 complaints. Now, the 12 that we've received this year, you said there were 12 total. Were all of those special ed?
No, 5.
I have 5 alone.
I'm telling you what the numbers are. I have it today.
Okay, so to date, you're saying that the record you received from DESE were that there were 5 special ed complaints this year. And were those the ones since April?
I'm sorry?
Since April? 'Cause
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I believe one might have been before April.
Okay,
It's off the top of my head, but yes.
okay. So you can send us that report from DESE. At any rate, here's my concern, and it's not, my concern is to be top-heavy and not student-centered. But I mean, my question is, like, in this roles and responsibilities, one of the responsibilities of the Assistant Special Education Director is to assist in maintaining tracking system and schedules to ensure compliance with regulations and timelines. And for me, as an advocate, and no offense, Nicole, but I would have filed multiple complaints by now about all the timelines that have been missed if I knew for a fact that they were true. And I'm saying that as a parent of 3 kids with special needs. So if we already have somebody that's supposed to be doing that job, maybe we need to evaluate whether they're doing their job well. So I think that we need to look at whether we need to do that yet. So I think we need to assess these first, and then look forward as to how we invest in that piece of it, in the administrative piece. I'm not saying, and God love Kathy Brooks, God love her. I will say that right now, because I have the utmost respect for that woman. I don't know how she does it. However, you know, I mean, I know that, you know, everybody has, there's too much paperwork in special education. I will say that first and foremost. However, we can't be missing timelines for anything. And I'm just saying that we need to figure out a way to do this. So we need to come up with, how do we address this? How do we address this going forward? And not just on the timelines of how do we get the IEP meetings in line, but how do we get our records to our parents that are, I'm sorry, we should not still have Alexa sitting here. And I don't see why she should still be sitting here. No offense. So that would be my 2 cents on that. And when you're done with your questions, I do have other questions.
I'm good. Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead. Yep.
So my questions that were not answered in your presentation, which is great if I were going to a special ed basic rights training. No offense, but how many meetings have there been this year that just in general, like not, I don't expect an exact number, just ballpark?
Gosh, that, ballpark special, between initial and, I can tell you in 1 week how many.
Okay, give
For
me an idea.
example, this week, we have 30 IEP meetings.
Okay. How many rejected initial IEPs are you getting, roughly?
As in a parent rejects the IEP?
Yeah, in full or partial?
One.
One, okay. So now, how many rejected findings of not eligible?
One.
How many others? I am 1, 2.
And is that just this year, or are you going?
I'm talking this year.
Okay. How many extended evals do you end up doing?
I think this year we did 5 extended evals.
Okay.
Karen, what's an extended eval?
So if during the meeting, the parents don't agree that the testing was comprehensive enough, or the team feels that they need to do more testing, because something wasn't picked up, or they feel there's more to be learned, they can request an extended evaluation.
And sometimes, actually, team members on the educational side say
Right.
we need more information. So if there is a language-based issue that they're thinking, we might have a speech and language pathologist also who didn't do originally testing.
Right. Have we had any independent educational evals?
Yes.
Paid for by the district?
Yes, we have.
How many?
4.
Do you want to know what that is?
No, thank you.
Okay. Do you, roughly, I really don't want to know this number, but I'm kind of afraid. How many out-of-district placements do we have?
Over 35.
Right, and just for the sake of those who may not have a clue, do you want to inform our other board members how much an out-of-district placement can cost the district?
Everywhere,
per pupil,
anywhere.
per year?
So out-of-district placement will cost anywhere from $80,000 to, we have one student who's priced at $174,000. The program is $174,000.
More than most colleges, just to make a point. So it would be nice if we could create programs within the district. And I know we're trying.
Exactly what we're trying to do.
Before you
and
say
we
that,
talked about it at the budget meetings.
right, I understand that, and I do applaud us for trying to do that, and I will keep harping on that. I'm just saying. I I just wanted to make that note so that people were aware of how
I
much.
just also think it's very important that you know, some of those students come into district already as an out-of-district placement student. So
Right.
we have students who are in DCF care, who are in pre-adoptive care in our town, and the bill then, once they come into Winchendon, gets turned over to Winchendon. So it might not be a recommendation from the district that they go out of district, but they're past district. We have numerous students who have moved in, who have out-of-district placements, and there's also a cost share sometimes with certain students that we have to pay a portion, and their past district has to pay a portion of a bill.
And that when a new student like mine moves into the district in the middle of the year, though you got lucky, Thad, the school shut down the second day after I signed my child up. So Winchendon didn't actually end up paying that year, but my child was already on an IEP. So before the district actually was able to assess, they had to follow the former school district's IEP fully before they can assess. So whatever the old school district says, they have to do. Just to give you a little background. One thing I will say that I was kind of disappointed, I would have liked to see, and I don't know, I know that Ryan and I had discussed this, and I thought it had been conveyed that we had, and I know you tried to give us a little bit of that with telling us the report that you got tonight, but I would have liked to see like a breakdown of what the complaints were, what information, you know, where we're falling down, where we as a district are falling down, because I don't see it as just the superintendent or Ms. Haro. It is us as the school board. We are responsible, because as long as any of our children are failing, as long as we're failing these parents in any way, shape, or form, if they're not getting their records in a timely manner, complete, and with everything in it, we're failing. And it is a complaint. And we need to figure out a way to fix that. If you need more administrative people, we'll figure that out.
Well, I just want to make it clear, Karen, that they're not all special ed records.
I'm not.
Well, I just want you to know that.
Mine is.
No, I understand that, and I'm not saying they are. I'm not saying they are.
Who's responsible for mine?
And I'm not saying they are. It's not you, I'm just saying in general. I'm talking about the whole district, because honestly, it's my fault as much as it's anybody else here. Because until we get this right, but I mean, when it comes to timelines, you know I'm going to be on your case, because I'm a special ed person.
I'll just say this, Karen, and I'll say it to the whole committee and the parents. As a parent of a student with a special need, myself, I advocate, and you'll hear me at meetings when I might not I might not have an agreement with a parent, or they're very concerned. Their right and their responsibility as a parent is to advocate for their child, just as you, I would, anyone in this room would advocate. And I totally respect anyone who wants to advocate for their child's needs. That's your job. That's why you have a child. You don't do it for just the sake of having a child. You do it because you want to support a child, and you're going to support their needs because you love that child. And I do respect parents, and I've said that to numerous parents, that you have the right to advocate for your child, and you should advocate for your child.
And I just, if we need to get you more administrative staff, and I do like the idea of another psychologist.
Folks, I'm so sorry, but please let us absorb the information. Other questions?
I think the only other thing I was going to say is I would just like that breakdown at some point. And that's just for us, you know, however we get it. I would like to see whatever and actually, I would like to see the breakdown for the entire district, like what are our complaints, because it'd be
That's
good
literally
to
what
know.
I have, Karen, is for the entire district since 2017. So
Right.
I will send that to you, and I will break it out, and as the best as I can, whatever the DESI sort of identifiers are, you know what I'm saying. And I think, you know, when you speak of records, you're not incorrect, but I think there are also variables that are important to note, that as a part of your records, a complete records file that goes to you includes every single email and every single document that has ever had your name on it, right? And so a part of that, and through the guidance of our council, is that, you know, that's a piece that is now reasonable for us to get in 10 days. When I say that, we have students that have easily over 2,000 pieces of email and documents that we have to go through and make sure that we comply with FERPA, and so that there's no other identifying information for other students as we disseminate those emails. So if you'll just think for just a second about emails that might have bus lists, that have MCAS setups, et cetera, we have to go through every one of those and redact every student's name. So through the guidance of council, we have made it our best attempt to provide the entire record short of emails. And then we are allowed to provide those emails in the most timely fashion that we can. So if one student has 2,000 emails, you can do the math on the multiplication on the amount of time that that's going to take when everybody actually has full-time jobs doing other things as well. So we're doing our best to go through all of those emails electronically, redact names electronically before we're allowed to distribute those.
Other questions?
If I may, Mr. Chair, thank you. So, thank you, Mrs. Rowe, for that presentation on special education and how it works, or how it's supposed to work here in our district. But this new member has 10 years of classroom experience working in an all-inclusive classroom that is student-centered with the wonderful support from special education support staff. So what I wanted to hear is, I have just one question. And I think this was the question I think we all need to have answered. When can Alexa and Chelsea expect all of their records for their students? If you have an answer.
Well, do you want me to answer that? It is.
My meeting's next week, so I'd like an answer.
To the extent that you are not exposing any personal information about either case, I think you should answer the question.
Sure. The emails, as Mr. King, is still being redacted, so I cannot say when those are going to be done because we have short staff. The special ed staff is not the only ones responsible for those emails and trying to distract them. So as soon as those are made available, they will get them. Chelsea's file, from my last knowledge, is waiting and received the message that the records are waiting for her. There is one document that I believe Mrs. Lassard was missing. We will review again.
I'm missing my whole Templeton file.
Oh.
I'm missing my Templeton file, and I'm missing my disagreement that I denied your IEP evaluation last year. I need those files for my attorney and my advocate. My meeting is next week. When will I receive them?
Ms. Lassard, I have to ask you please not to address the board. I'm so sorry.
I'm talking to Nicole.
I'm sorry, were you done?
Sure.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Though I don't have an answer.
Other questions from the board?
When will I be getting my files? He asked you a question.
The missing file, the additional information will be sent to you.
When?
I will work with the staff tomorrow to get that done for
I
you.
emailed you last week and I don't have an answer. Always the answer.
Ms. Haru, I'm going to ask the board to move on.
How are your channels working?
Other questions on special education?
What about Chelsea's?
Thank you, Ms. Haru.
That's waiting for you.
All right, our next item of business is the food service bid. I believe that we have information in our packet from Ms. Babinski. Yes, we do. So you have a letter from Ms. Babinski about the food service management contract, and perhaps you could tell us a little bit about it.
Yes. So this is my first time working with a food service management company, and so I felt like I needed to explain the process a little bit because it was also new to me. USDA requires companies that are managing outside companies managing food services that they go through the bid process. So every few years we are required to go through a bid process. It's not a reflection of the current services that are being provided or anything like that. It is literally a procurement process. So this year, DESE has spent the last year creating an RFP template. And what that means is a request for proposal. There are basically two types of bids: an invitation for bid, which is where you produce a scope of work and a company gives you a quote and you go with the quote that's the lowest quote. And then there's a request for proposal. So you basically outline what you're looking for, and each company provides a proposal that's a non-price proposal, so proposal for services, and then a price proposal. So I just wanted to explain the process a little bit because it is going to be new information, and hopefully that sort of summed that up. But basically, the food service management contract RFP for the district was posted on April 14th, 2023. The notification was posted in the Gardner News, online in the Winchendon Courier, on Combis, which is the state procurement website, and on the district website. On April 27th, we hosted a vendor pre-conference meeting and facility walkthrough. We are pleased to have 3 vendors attend this meeting, and those vendors are listed in your memo. The deadline to submit proposals was Monday, May 8th, and the district received 2 outstanding bid proposals. Vendors submitting proposals included Chartwells, which is our current vendor, and Fresh Picks Cafe. The non-price proposals, the way the template works and the criteria for evaluation is that you need to submit these proposals separately and sealed, and so you're not allowed to open the price proposals until after you evaluate the non-price proposals. There is a evaluation criteria that is outlined in the RFP that DESE created, which gives you exactly the standards. The easiest way to say it is you're required to obtain a certain number of references, and if all the references are excellent, then they get a certain score. If 3 to 5 of the references are excellent, they get a certain score, and so forth. You're also required to have 3 separate evaluators use the evaluation criteria to evaluate the non-price proposals. The proposals submitted showed overall scores of highly advantageous for both vendors. The overall criteria required vendors to receive an overall rating of 28 to 36 in order to be classified as highly advantageous. And again, both of those vendors fell in that 28 to 36. According to the evaluation protocol, both vendors then move into the price proposal evaluation. And so it's sort of like a clean slate at that point. They both move into the price proposal, and you open the price proposal that have been received. At this stage, all price information is reviewed. However, the bid award goes to the vendor with the most advantageous guaranteed return proposed. And so they give you a summary of anticipated revenue, a summary of anticipated expenses, and then there's their fees and whatnot. And then at the end of the day, what do they believe the district will either have a surplus or a deficit and whatnot. Both providers anticipated a surplus. That's with us continuing with the community eligibility provision and universal feeding. Right now, universal feeding is extended. Depending on when universal feeding ends, we will then revert into the community eligibility provision, which for parents, it's still free food, free breakfast and lunch meals. But the rate reimbursements and requirements are a little bit different, so it's kind of like a behind the scenes difference in the programs that we're running. The guaranteed return submitted by Fresh Picks Cafe was the most advantageous in the price proposal. So as a result of the evaluation protocol and criteria that was received, it's recommended that the district award the food service management contract to Fresh Picks Cafe for the 2023-2024 school year. I just felt like, my understanding is that Chartwells has been with the district for, I believe, 9 years, and so we just really wanted to make sure that we thank them for their dedicated services to the Winchendon community.
Mr. Chair, I have to ask because I don't want to be feeding our kids based on just price points. How closely were the offerings of the two vendors looked at? I mean, Chartwell's, I mean, of course, doesn't matter where you are, you're going to have complaints about school lunch. And it doesn't matter who's providing it, but I'm just wondering how closely these two were looked at in terms of healthful offerings, alternatives, and
So all of that.
and also in terms of sensitivity to allergies and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So I want to be very clear that it's truly not based on the dollar value. It's a process. The end is certainly based on what's the most advantageous guaranteed return for the school district to operate a school lunch program. But the non-price proposal does include menus, professional development. I'm just trying to think of some of the criteria. But the non-price proposals that we receive are about this big. They're huge binders. And so there's a lot of work that goes into creating these proposals and then evaluating them. And so the guarantee, I guess that's a subjective question. I think it's within a certain percentage, but probably less than 10% difference between the two guaranteed returns. But both vendors were rated highly advantageous based on their non-price proposals, which do look at healthy options, meals. For example, Fresh Picks Cafe has a nutritionist on staff that develops their menus, and there was some information with in sample menus that were provided as part of the evaluation criteria.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Kay.
I was just going to clarify as well, it's really a two-part process, right? Like, we can't look at the dollar value piece before evaluating sort of their non-value, their non-dollar value piece. So we had to go through and do the critical evaluation on both of them.
I'm sorry, I'll
Yeah,
let
yeah.
you go on, but who's involved, when you say the evaluation, who's involved in the evaluation?
So you have to have three folks each sit down and go through the big binders that they provide. I went through one. I was one. Liz Latore was one. Ms. Babinski was one. We all go through independently. We don't sit together. We go through. There's a whole rating system. You give them ratings. They come out as highly advantageous, and so on. These two bids happened to, or excuse me, these two folks came out at the same level. So had one of them come in, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if one of them came in lower in terms of their rating at that point, then they would have been removed from that process. So if one of them was highly advantageous and one was
Only advantageous.
then we would have been committed to going with the highly advantageous. That was the first step, and then the dollar amount. So they both came out as highly advantageous before we ever were able to kind of break the seal on the financial piece.
I know Chartwell's is all over. Fresh Picks, I'm just wondering how many districts they serve and where they're headquartered.
I would have to get you that information. They did provide, they have to have a certain number of districts that they currently serve. Geographical area cannot be part of that. However, they do service districts in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. So they have to have a certain number to be rated as highly advantageous. As well, we did check references for districts. Questions that were asked were things like student participation, feedback, staffing, all those kinds of things. So I did personally check the references as well. And I did probably bothered Desi a little bit too much, but I pretty much checked in at every evaluation step with them just to make sure that we were interpreting the RFP. It is the very first year with the RFP template. Chapter 30B and the procurement regulations are extremely strict, and so there's not a lot of personal evaluation that goes into it. I mean, it's laid out they know exactly what we're going to give them for ratings based on what they produce.
Okay, well, if they're not at least as good as Chartwell's, I'm going to hear about it from my granddaughters.
Absolutely, you will.
Thank you.
Yeah. And to be clear, I think that the way the process works, when I asked Desi today, if we decided not to vote with them, we would need to submit, we would need to repost for a new the whole process all over for a bid. And I do not have any red flags or any issues that I would recommend that at this point.
I would love to have a little more conversation to get our last member in here to vote on this.
Just one more question.
There we go. Thanks, Greg.
The last time when we awarded these to Chartwells, or these groups in the past, I remember seeing proposed contracts. I'm just wondering how we vote on it tonight without a proposed contract.
So what we're voting on tonight is to award the bid, and then you enter contract negotiations. The DESE has put forth a draft contract. Any amendments or changes that go between the different, the vendor council and the district council the draft has to be submitted and approved by DESE before we can enter a final contract. Once we have an approval from DESE on a final contract and both the vendor and us, feel that way, then we will have to present that to the committee for approval on the contract itself.
All right, thank you.
Other questions on the food service contract? Okay, happy to take a motion if there is one.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
David?
I move to award the food service bid to the Fresh Picks Cafe and authorize the superintendent to enter contract negotiations as outlined in the request for proposal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any, we will take a roll call vote, starting with Alicia.
Yay.
And Greg?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much. Our next topic is the appointment of a school committee member to the Town Manager Search Committee. As I think everyone in this room probably knows, Justin Salzbach has been the town manager for a couple of years. He has found another place of employment and I believe has officially tendered his resignation. I was contacted by I believe this is the town clerk's office, indicating that the Board of Selectmen intends to begin the process for searching for a new town manager and would like to include members from the Finance Committee as well, I should say member from the Finance Committee and member from the School Committee. They are asking for letters of interest from individuals that would like to join that committee by June 7th. And therefore, with our meeting this evening on June 1st, and this is our last meeting before June 7th, I am hopeful that we can identify a member to represent the school committee on that group, and happy to take any nominations or self-nominations.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Anyways, I'll go by they, them right now. I would like to nominate myself.
Very well. Other nominations?
Mr. Chair.
Greg?
I had the pleasure of serving with Ryan on the last town manager search committee, and I would like to nominate Ryan. He was a pretty thorough questioner and was right on top of things, so I would nominate the chair.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
You're welcome.
I would respectfully prefer to defer.
Okay.
If there's another member that's willing. Thank you. Thank you, God. This is an important search, right? This is the town manager for our town. One of the things that we have seen during Justin's tenure is that the town government and the school administration have worked very well together. An example of that is the financial parameters that came around relative to the FY24 budget. And so having a town manager that will step into those shoes and work well with the school district, I think is very important. Assuming that that is something that a perspective that Karen shares and there aren't other recommendations, I would prefer to defer to another member. Any other nominations? Okay, happy to take a motion if there is one, and
Need
maybe,
a second if anybody wants to second it.
Second?
I don't think we have a motion yet.
Oh,
Mr. Chair.
she just nominated.
Angelina?
I move to appoint Karen Cass to the Town Manager Search Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any, we'll take a roll call vote. Alicia?
Yay.
Greg?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. It is unanimous. Thank you, and thank you, Karen. All right, up next, we have the Robinson Broadhurst Foundation receipt of FY24 funds. In your packet, there is a message from Dawn Van Etten regarding the Robinson Broadhurst Foundation grant for FY24 in the amount of $170,000. That grant was awarded by the Robinson Broadhurst Foundation at their meeting on May 9th, 2023 for the purposes of dual enrollment project and enrichment projects within the district. These are funds that not only are competitive, but are also awarded based on the characteristics of the application and the warranted aspects, or what the Robinson Broadhurst Foundation considers to be the warranted aspects. So prior to our vote of accepting these funds, as a school board, we are obligated to vote to accept any grant funds. It is worthy of note that this is a sizable grant that the school district is very appreciative and humbled to receive. So on behalf of the school committee, I will say to the Robinson Broadhurst Foundation a hearty thank you and great deal of appreciation for that. Additionally, we will recall that these funds will not be used, similar to other Robinson Broadhurst funds, for any type of operational style expenses. These truly are designed for dual enrollment and enrichment projects. So with that, you have the note, and happy to take a motion if there is one. Karen?
I'll make the motion and then we can have discussion. Right? Okay. I would like to move to approve and accept the funds donated by the Robinson Broadhurst Foundation.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Is there discussion?
It's a great amount. Can I ask Mr. King, how much does this cover of the dual enrollment program?
We requested this year for additional funds to cover the entire dual enrollment program in this particular year, with the intent of expanding said program to offer to juniors. So traditionally, or to date, we have only offered this program to seniors. We're making an attempt to extend this to juniors so that you could have a graduate have substantially more credits as they leave us. So I think this is completely off the top of my head, but I believe that we put in for the grant request approximately $70,000 for dual enrollment programming, and then, which is a type of enrichment, of course, and then the balance of that would be for purely enrichment activities. So to Dr. Forsythe's point earlier, this used to be the place that we paid for pretty much exclusively our laptop program, our Chromebook program. Some other things in there as well, but that's where these monies were spent. So we shifted, as we've been talking about here for a while, to use these grants, this in Murdoch Trust, exclusively for enrichment purposes. So the other pieces, off the top of my head, for the balance of that money went across all the schools. So the spirit here was that every school receives something. So as an example, I think we had funds in here for a Washington, D.C. trip for 8th graders. We have funds in here for the Nature's Classroom trip that you had Toy Town take this year. So, we've been very clear. We made a presentation on what we sort of went for, but it was intended to make sure that we could hit every school, and as best we could, possibly every grade level between this and Murdoch Trust. Does that answer your question?
Not really.
Not really. So again, $70,000 for dual enrollment. That it covers, to date, that covers, should cover everything that we have for dual enrollment.
Okay, All right, so that will cover both seniors and juniors?
Correct. That was the expansion of this program this year, was that we extended how much we requested. Traditionally, we would requested about $36,000.
Okay.
This year, we requested, I think, 72. I think we just doubled it and asked so that we could extend to the junior class.
How many students are we going to have in each class?
You know, we'll
Or
do
each grade?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's traditionally what we've been doing, and I don't have a hard number,
Around
but it's
20.
roughly been 20 to 25%
Right.
of our senior class every year. So as the class is smaller, so is obviously the number of students that are there. But we've been hitting about 20 to 25% of the existing class. So this year, I think we have 10. We have 10 students in the dual enrollment program. In prior years, we've had as many as 21, if I'm off the top of my head, as the largest class we've had. Yep, I forgot about that. So pretty good-sized program at this point,
Okay.
relative, percentage-wise.
So so in the beginning of next school year, you can give us a breakout of like
There-
how many students
There was a
we'll have?
slide in the budget presentation as well that actually copied and pasted the full budget application that we submitted to Robinson Broadhurst. So we could certainly share that slide with you just to make sure.
That would be
have that.
awesome. Thank you. I like the
Yeah.
visuals. They help me.
Yeah. No, and I think, the number of students as well, it changes between now and the beginning of the year, in that some students change their mind over the summer. It usually grows over the summer, it never shrinks. That kids decide, hey, that's a great idea, or kids move into the district, whatever it is, but.
That's why I was thinking maybe October, you could give us a little
Yeah.
presentation.
And the great way that the program works is we're not bound by, we don't pay more for more students. So the way the program works is it's a set price per class that we offer, and we can fill that class with within reason, I think, 25 students, off the top of my head, 20 to 25 students. And so like I said, the most we've had is 21, but it's kind of a set rate per class, and we put the students in there.
And just another quick question, I'm sorry. And I know that Ms. Rondeau was great at having the dual enrollment seniors. Is she going to be handling seniors and juniors?
She runs the dual enrollment program, so yes, she would be running that whole program with juniors and seniors.
All right, thank you.
Other discussion? Just a note for the committee that I intend to abstain from this vote. My employer has the potential to offer dual enrollment classes as part of this program. Not all of them, but it could be some of them, and the potential for these funds to go to my employer is messy. So I will be abstaining from this vote. Other discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. We'll start at the other end. Karen?
Aye.
Greg? Nope, sorry. David?
It's all right. Aye.
Greg? Aye. Alicia? And the chair abstains. So the
You're
vote
having
is
name problems this month.
4-0, right?
Yeah.
It is hot. For everyone that has made it through this meeting, kudos to you, because it is blazing hot in here, folks. If you're at home in an air-conditioned house, let me tell you. Okay, we are at future agenda items, folks. Happy to take any future agenda items that folks have.
Well, like I said, I would like us to come back with the information that was requested during the meeting.
Yep.
My brain is melting. Yes, the superintendent evaluation is on the 15th.
Mr. Chair, I had a question about the superintendent evaluations. At the last meeting, I had asked you if it was possible that as a school committee member, I could file a superintendent evaluation, but I would imagine it would be messy because I'm a non-voting member, so I would like a follow-up with that if possible.
You got it. I'll have that to you definitely before the next meeting.
Okay.
Could be early next week. But I will have to check our policies and potentially with legal counsel.
Okay.
So let me make sure I get that right. Star that for me. Other agenda items? Okay. Closing member comments, we're going to ask Alicia to please go last. This is her last meeting.
Wrong name.
Angelina.
My gosh. My goodness gracious. Angelina, on your last meeting, I hope you don't get offended by being called the wrong name.
Jeez, at least it was an A name.
Alicia might be willing to go first, but
Yeah, I'll go first.
Angelina,
I'll go first.
please.
Which is kind of ironic because so my comment is dedicated to Angelina. So, according to Carol Burnett, when you have a dream, you've got to grab it and never let go. You have embodied this. From the first time I met you at a town meeting to speak in favor of Winchendon Pride Month, it was clear you were and are a force to be reckoned with. Your body of work speaks volumes and attributes to your success, culminating but not limited to your acceptance to Smith College. Your future is bright, but when times get tough, remember the words of Pat Summitt from her acceptance speech upon receiving the Arthur Ashe Courage Award after being diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. Keep on keeping on. Best wishes in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know it's late, so I'll try to be brief, but I got to tell you, I've had a million things going through my head over the past few weeks, and I'll tell you, I'm not going to be throwing out any applause lines. I have to give Mr. King some credit here for sitting here and taking the shots that have been sent his way over the past few weeks. People have come in here talking about his staffing decisions, and sometimes with information that normally wouldn't be out there in the public. He, on this end, can't respond. It's a pretty one-sided argument when a person can't provide all the details that are behind the decisions that they're making. It makes someone an easy target. And I think it behooves us to the best that we can. I mean, when we hired Mr. King, we hired him with the assumption that we trusted him as our superintendent, and I haven't seen a reason yet not to. Have I agreed with everything he's done? No. And I've told him that. And I know that people on this committee have been good at questioning him at committee meetings, but I'd like to ask some of the committee members. It's easy to sit out front and ask questions in public. When was the last time you went into his office and asked him to sit down and explain his decisions in private? I'm talking about the school committee members. Thank you. I think it behooves the people on this committee to go into the superintendent's office and ask questions, ask the hard questions, as Karen would say. He'll give you an answer. You may not like it. I've not always liked the answers that I had. And I just think, I'd like to thank him for giving us the report on how the schools have been doing lately. And I appreciate the fact that we have a couple of schools that are no longer being supervised, as it were, by the state. And I didn't hear him taking credit for that. And I thought having to point out that Joan Landers was here in 2019 was kind of a cheap shot, quite frankly. There just wasn't a need for that. He wasn't taking credit for it. He was simply giving us some information. So I just think we need a little more thoughtfulness sometimes, on my part as well. But it just, again, staffing decisions aren't easy to make, but nobody's indispensable. Nobody can't be replaced. And that's fine. And so, if you think the district is going to fall apart because certain people have been displaced. I can tell you, if we replace Mr. King tomorrow, in 2 years, we'd have another group of parents in here complaining about that superintendent, whatever it was. And I wish this could have been done in a little bit more, let's say I wish that the anger was down a little bit more and that the conversation on both sides. Again, I'm embarrassed that I yelled at Ms. Lassard the first meeting that we had, but I did it. And can I finish? And it's gotten to the point where we've had character assassinations coming this way and people trying to do the same thing to parents in this audience. And it's ridiculous. That never should have happened. Nobody on this committee ever should have gotten that email.
Thank you.
And we've talked. So let's keep things real, keep the temperature down a little bit, and maybe worry more about what's happening to the district and a little less about scoring points. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
David. I don't say this much in my profession, but I will be brief. I'm way ahead of you, Greg. I met with Mr. King yesterday for about an hour and a half, and thank you, Mr. King, for taking that time out of your busy schedule. I know you got a lot on your plate this week with graduation, class day, all of that. So, and it was productive, and that will continue. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look out. I don't see any, well, maybe a couple of students, but the Clark YMCA is looking for camp counselors right now. We have 8 positions that are open that need to be filled in, well, the end of the school year. So if you're 16 or older, please go on the website or stop off at the Clark. For those of you out watching, for parents, your children are looking for a part-time job, it's a great opportunity to be a part of a great organization and to hang out with my kids. So, all right, so thank you.
You're looking
Thank you,
for
David.
babysitting.
Karen.
I see what
I
you
got
did there. First, I want to say to Angelina, I am going to miss you so very much. Not that I don't miss I miss my students every year. You have been a pleasure to work with on school committee. I have been blessed to be your seatmate. I don't know what I'm going to do next year when I have nobody to help me with my iPad. I really mean that. Nobody understands. I really, really mean that. Angelina is my iPad guru. So whoever else up here understands the iPad is going to have to help me. Yeah, I know. I wasn't really looking at you, Ryan. But I know you are going to do absolutely phenomenal and amazing things. As I've told you before, I know that your poli-sci dreams will come true. And as I've told you, I know quite a few people, if you need other internships besides the one that David offered. But, you know, I think you'll have a lot of internships even without our help. But I know you'll do amazing things, and I'm sure I'll see you anyways because, you know, you'll be around. And I'm still hoping that you'll bring home some crumble cookies from that field trip for all of us. And I can't wait to see you walk across the stage at graduation. I will be bawling, but I think it will be, hopefully it won't be too hot for all of us. On another note, closing comments, I would like to say this. I ask questions in public because that is where the public record is. So, yes, I can go in and talk to Mr. King, and he knows. I have gone and talked to him. I've called him if it's something urgent. But for the most part, I feel that our job as school committee members should be done in the public eye. That's where our actual power lies. Our actual whole power as a committee is actually when we're sitting here. We actually hold no power outside of this room and sitting at this table. Outside of this room and not sitting at this table, we are just people, just like the rest of you. We have no power over anything. So when I am here, I will ask questions, and I like to have things on the record and out in public. And that's because I believe in transparency, and I believe it's very important for this district, because I do feel that, you know, through no fault of anybody, every school district, and I say that as somebody who's been in multiple school districts as a special ed advocate, struggle with this. So I do feel it's important that we do ask questions here, and we do hold people accountable here as school committee members. And I did mean what I said earlier. We are failing the students of this school district every day, that we don't hold people accountable. So it's time to put up or shut up. Thank you.
Time and place for everything.
Thank you, Karen. Angelina. Angelina Delasante has been a resident of Winchendon for a significant amount of time. She has made this place not only her home, but her community. She has invested herself, her time, her friends' time, and others into making Winchendon a better place. She's done so not only through the activities within her school, within her theater groups, within her volunteer activities, but also with groups like Heal Winchendon and the CAC. Angelina Delasante has been a successful student academically, socially, and as a fantastic member of our school committee. In the fall of 2023, Angelina will be attending Smith College, where the acceptance rate is far below 50%. An institution that does not accept its students lightly, but looks very, very closely at the whole student, who they are, and how they will contribute to their college campus. For that, Angelina should be applauded, recognized, and not only thanked, but appreciated for her time on the school committee and as a member of Winchendon. Can we please have a round of applause for Angelina Delasante? With that,
I'm not supposed to cry till graduation. Stop this. Okay. I have a little thing written up because I want to get everything in, all my thoughts. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to everyone here, but particularly my fellow school committee members and my advisor, Ms. Rondeau, for granting me the opportunity to serve on this board and allow me to be a continually involved member of my school community. Serving in this position has offered me a view into how the procedures and policies work when it comes to managing a school district. Whether that means budget updates or voting on initiatives, I have learned so much from being able to sit in the seat that I'm in now. As many of you know, I'm a senior and I'll be graduating on Sunday. I'm planning on a career that involves government and/or law, and being able to serve on a board like this has furthered my passion for public service and policy. Thank you to all the school committee members for welcoming me with open arms and taking the time to make me feel valued and included as a student representative. I feel as though all of your willingness to teach me and welcome me in this position is reflective of my time here at Murdoch and my interactions with staff and administration. Over the past several meetings, I've sat attentively at this table and listened to the public and their concerns for this district. I appreciate all of everyone's concerns and their courage to voice what they see as problems in efforts to find solutions for the benefit of their children. I would like to take my time here tonight to reflect back on my experiences as a student at Murdoch and my interactions with our amazing staff and administrators, because without these people, I can confidently say that my comfortability not only serving on this committee, but being an active member in my school would not have been nearly as significant as it is now. First, I would like to thank Dr. Forsyth. From the first day that I walked into this room to serve on the school committee, Dr. Forsyth has been a kind, understanding, and approachable presence that has allowed me to feel comfortable asking questions and stating my opinion on things happening in the district. I appreciate your willingness to teach me how this committee runs and supporting me through my term as student representative. Now, I would like to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude and respect for Mr. King. As a student who has seen 3 separate principals in a span of 4 years, I can by far say that you've impacted me as far as my love for this district and my wanting to make strides in contribution to bettering my school community. I would like to recall a specific instance where Mr. King's actions have particularly stuck with me. At the beginning of my term as student representative, I was very interested in learning the ins and outs of the role of the school committee, and Mr. King was aware of this. In fact, Mr. King went out of his way to have a meeting with me to sit down and answer all my questions regarding the school committee, how the budget works, and explained all of the technical educational terms that I was not familiar with. Leaving this meeting, I felt listened to and truly valued as a student. Thank you. Mr. King, from my perspective, in my years at Murdoch that I've known you as admin, you've existed as a true positive presence and support for students. So thank you for your care for our small school. In closing, I would like to once again thank all of you for giving me a chance to serve in this position. I have nothing but pride for this school district, and I'm happy to be able to say that I'll soon be a Murdoch alum. I love this school, I love my teachers, I love Winchendon, and I cannot wait to continue my involvement with this school.
Thank you, Angelina.
And with that, we welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Greg, withdraw your motion.
Withdraw it.
You said you were asking for a motion.
Angelina's gonna do it. Angelina.
I wanted to get out of here. Go ahead, Angelina.
Mr. Chair, I would like to move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Nice to have it.